Who are these people?
We're getting to fuck Israel part. All right, let's go. I don't like doing this, and they keep making me do this every week. And I have to read fucking headlines like this. All right, I'm sorry, everyone. Israel wiped out at least 1,200 entire families in Gaza, analysis finds. And this comes from Indie Media Award honoree Sharon Zhang over at Truthout. Indie, we're going to the best. There are also at least 3,400 families with only one surviving member. So 1,200 families wiped out, 3,400 families with one surviving member. Who knows what kind of condition they're in and how long they're going to last with no one else in their family to take care of them or look out for them. Look at this. This is what they're dealing with. Like, for real. Amir Hassan al-Shafi eats an iftar meal, the breaking of the fast, okay, with family in their destroyed house amid the rubble of buildings in Beit Lahia, okay, in the northern Gaza Strip on March 4th during Ramadan. Just look at that. Awful. Like, just fucking Trump, Biden, Netanyahu, fuck them all. They're just monsters. Okay. The Israeli military completely wiped out at least 1,200 Palestinian families in Gaza in its genocide, a new analysis finds, shedding more light on the staggering and permanent toll of Israel's extermination campaign. And it's even more than that, but that's only the ones that they've counted so far. A Reuters analysis of data, so you know it definitely was whitewashed heavily because it came from Reuters, and they are huge Israel apologists, came from the Gaza Health Ministry. I don't even know how there is a Gaza Health Ministry at this point, but I guess there is somehow. But they found at least 1,238 families defined as married couples, and any children they may have were totally erased with no survivors. That's not a war crime or anything, is it, Reef?
No, speaking of, make me big. Make me big.
Go.
Do the embiggening. This was also the Ramadan eating meal in Gaza. So, I mean, you're like just amongst the rubble. Like,
wow.
Anyway, you just went along with that other picture you showed.
Yeah. Okay. Families with between 5 and 9 members make up roughly a third of the families wiped out. In at least one case, Israeli forces massacred every member of a family of 14. Further, almost a quarter of Palestinians in the official death toll of over 48,000 people were 12 years old or younger, while nearly a third were under 18, the report found. Like we said, they are killing children. Children who have been under occupation their entire fucking lives, that never voted for Hamas or anyone for that matter, because they're children. There are roughly 8,000 people in the death tally for whom there is no identifying information like age or gender because they were vaporized.
They literally had to start weighing like amounts of body parts to find an average. That's how things were working then.
Over 2,200.
Like a human child is, 40 pounds or whatever. So you just find that amount of body parts and that's it. Fucking wild. Like
over 2,200 in the official death toll were under 2 years old when they were slaughtered by Israeli forces, the analysis found. Slaughtered. Remember that word. Slaughtered.
Yep.
Not just Israeli forces, American bombs. It's possible that even more families were wiped out in the genocide, as experts have repeatedly stressed that the true death toll is far higher than the official count. The analysis roughly lines up with that of Gaza health officials, who reported late last year that Israel had caused over 1,400 families to be wiped from the civil registry. Further, officials found that there were at least 3,400 families who had lost all but one member to Israeli attacks. So this tracks, except that it shows no acceleration of any of that since then, and there's been very little ceasefire, even when they have a ceasefire in place. Yeah, I don't buy it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the experience of 13-year-old Mohammed Al-Agha. Reuters documented Agha lost both his parents, his brother, and two sisters, aged 11, 10, and 8, during the genocide. Palestinian father Abdul Salam al-Banah, the publication documented, is the only surviving member of his family unit. His 9-year-old daughter, his 5-year-old son, and his wife were killed in an Israeli airstrike on their apartment building on December 15th, 2023. Imagine having to fucking go on knowing that these fuckers murdered everyone in your family. What would you want to do?
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
He spent a week surviving under the rubble of the building himself, he said. He and two of his in-laws found their way out from dark ruins after feeling an air pocket, but the bodies of his wife and children are still buried under there, with Israel blocking heavy equipment, of course, from entering Gaza. He said, "Nothing's more painful than this. I can't put them to rest." But they're only going to... I don't even want to... Because he and other members of his family escaped from the rubble, Bana was able to report the deaths of his wife and children to health officials and therefore have their deaths tallied in the toll. But officials estimate that there are at least 14,000 people whose bodies are still stuck under the rubble and are excluded from the death toll. Last month, the Gaza Government Information Office said that officials believe that those deaths included that the true death toll from Israeli attacks is at least 61,709 people, which we also believe is still severely undercounting. Support Truth Out. That's Sharon. Again, Sharon's an Indie Media Award honoree, and we only go to people that we actually really trust what they say on this one. I trust Andre Damon over at World Socialist website enough on this one because, again, kind of like we were talking about uppers. We were talking about with Oz earlier before the show Dragnet. You're getting inside look at Reef's house right now.
Yes.
Just the facts, ma'am. Israel is blocking entry of food into Gaza and plans to cut the power and water. And this was, again, 6 days ago, March 3rd. There is a line of trucks.
You've been smoking marijuana?
Me? No. Maybe.
You talking about Dragnet? What?
Trucks line up at the Egyptian side of the Rafah border crossing between Egypt and the Gaza Strip, and after Israel blocked the entry of aid trucks into Gaza on Sunday, March 2nd. That was the last time we were live.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've been reporting on a lot of this stuff for a while. The Office of Netanyahu announced Sunday that Israel has blocked all food shipments into Gaza, aiming to starve the population into submission and ethnically cleanse the enclave. That's not a war crime, is it, Reef?
Netanyahu?
Is that a war crime? Refresh my memory.
Fuck you.
Right. So that's a yes.
Yeah.
And Anna Mayer says we should all watch Jones Plantation together. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen that.
Sure. Right. You hurt my family, I'll kill you with my bare hands. So that's That's in a movie, yes. So, again, we've decided to block all entries of goods. This is from Netanyahu himself. I'm not, like, this isn't Hamas saying this. This isn't anybody else. This is directly out of the douchebag's mouth himself. Before a cabinet meeting. No trucks entered Gaza this morning, nor will they at this stage, because Trump and Miriam Adelson gave them permission, as if Miriam Adelson can give Trump permission and Trump can give Netanyahu permission to do whatever the fuck they're doing.
And the best part of this plan is no one can stop me.
The White House endorsed Israel's policy of mass starvation, because of course they did. Israel has negotiated in good faith since the beginning of the Trump administration to ensure the release of, how are they saying this with a straight face, of hostages held captive by Hamas terrorists.
What did he say?
We will support their decision on next steps, given Hamas has indicated it is no longer interested in a negotiated ceasefire. So you mean exactly what we called 6 weeks ago when they announced this quote-unquote ceasefire, that Trump will try to negotiate directly, which he tried to this week, declare that a failure and say, well, Bibi, we tried, good faith, you got to take care of it, go finish the job, take care of the problem. Yeah.
I am altering the deal.
It was the most obvious shit ever that it was going to go down that way, and it's just awful that people didn't see it, or, I mean, look, what were we going to do about it other than not vote for either one of the fucking warmongering imperialists that were going to continue this shit, which is what all of us did.
Bye, Israel!
They keep expanding into Syria. They've stolen half of Syria. They keep expanding into Lebanon. I wouldn't say bye-bye. I mean, I don't know who's going to stop them, because nobody stopped them yet. The announcement, of course, came after the lapse of phase 1 of the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. Netanyahu government has reneged on its commitment to begin phase 2 and has insisted on demanding the release of more hostages before continuing phase 1. In reality, of course, Israel's refusal to uphold the ceasefire agreement is a calculated provocation aimed at creating the conditions for mass starvation of the people in Gaza in order to forcibly displace them and seize their land. Amen, Andre Damon. He got that right.
I don't care.
Last month, Trump declared that the United States supported the ethnic cleansing of Gaza, a policy previously proposed by sections of the Israeli government. In announcing...
Mom, I'm sorry.
No, he's not. They're going to name it after him. He's not sorry.
No.
In announcing...
You can do it, baby.
In announcing the blockade, Netanyahu's office warned, quote, if Hamas continues its refusal, there will be further consequences. The Israeli newspaper Israel Hayom, that's today, reported that the government is preparing to enforce a total blockade of food and water into Gaza. And of course, if they blockade electricity, that also stops any electrical and water processing plants, salination, desalination, and they get no potable water. Israel's Channel 14 reported that the energy minister Eli Cohen is planning to propose shutting off Gaza's electricity supply at the next Israeli cabinet meeting. Israel's blockade of food...
AKA siege warfare, which is... The survey says...
Ding, 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 ding. Israel's blockade of food aid to Gaza is a war crime and a crime against humanity. Just add another charge to the pile at the ICJ that they won't do anything about. Oxfam condemned the move in a statement, a strongly worded letter, calling it a reckless act of collective punishment explicitly prohibited under international humanitarian law, of which we will do absolutely nothing.
How dare you? How dare you?
Sure. UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs Tom Fletcher condemned the move in a post on Twitter, declaring, quote, Israel's decision to halt aid into Gaza is alarming. International humanitarian law is clear. We must be allowed to deliver vital life-saving aid. Or else what? Or else what?
Right. Uh-huh.
In a statement, Doctors Without Borders spokesperson Caroline Seguin said, quote, Israel is once again blocking an entire population from receiving aid, using it as a bargaining chip. This is unacceptable, outrageous, and will have devastating consequences, which is exactly what they intend. No, the devastating consequences are that the Palestinians will be murdered.
Yeah.
That's the devastating consequences, not that there will be
zero consequences for Israel doing it.
Right. Kenneth Roth, former head of Human Rights Watch, said that Israel has an absolute duty under the Geneva Conventions to allow food to at least enter Gaza. No, they have a responsibility as an occupying force to provide nourishment and water.
Yeah.
Avocados from Mexico.
That would be nice. They'd probably send them.
Yeah, but we're going to tariff them first. Don't worry about it.
Quote, Israel's latest threat to cut off all aid is a resumption of the war crimes starvation strategy that led to war crimes charges against Netanyahu at the ICC to begin with. Of course. The entire population of Gaza is suffering from food insecurity, at minimum, due to Israel's deliberate blockade of aid. In December, the UN estimated that over 19,000 children had been hospitalized for acute malnutrition in just 4 months. We saw the videos of literal children that were just skin and bones that literally died of starvation. They were starved to death by Israel. Last month, health officials in Gaza reported that 6 babies froze to death in a 2-week period due to widespread lack of fuel to counter freezing temperatures. Again, they were on the aid trucks. Israel stopped the aid trucks. There were tents. There were blankets. There was fuel. There were ways to keep people warm there. There were jackets. There was clothing, diapers, medical supplies. Meanwhile, back in the Hall of Injustice, the United States is Go ahead. Is escalating its.
Meanwhile,
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom.
That's pretty accurate because the United States is escalating its military support for Israel. Thanks so much. On Friday, the U.S. State Department announced that Secretary of State Little Marco Rubio had invoked emergency authorities, quote unquote, to send an additional $4 billion in weapons to Israel. Sure. Nobody's mad about that. State Department said the U.S. would, quote, continue to use all available tools to fulfill America's long-standing commitment to Israel's security and Norman Bremen's orders. Thanks, Marco. Including means to counter security threats. We all know who Marco answers to. It's the reason why he has that job. The package includes a variety of potential weapons, with reports indicating that over 35,000 2,000-pound bombs could be sent. Because you need that.
Phrasing?
35,000 2,000-pound bombs. What the fuck? Why are they dropping 35,000 bombs on a tiny little strip of land that over 1 million people allegedly still live at? And we're sending it there for them to do it. Nothing to see here. Okay? Those are also, by the way, war crimes. Each of these bombs is capable of leveling an entire city block. So I guess this is for the West Bank. The Biden administration sent Israel at least 14,000 of these bombs, which Israel used alongside other U.S.-provided weapons to destroy most of the structures in Gaza. Like I said, next is going to be for the West Bank. Responding to the announcement, Netanyahu praised Trump. Of course he did, because monsters praise monsters, saying, quote, Donald Trump is the greatest friend that Israel has ever had in the White House. Jesus. George W. Bush is really bad about that statement because he certainly licked Netanyahu's boots really hard. And so did Joe Biden. He's shown it by sending us all the munitions that were being held up. This way, he's giving Israel the tools we need to finish the job against Iran's terror access. So he's already setting up for the Iran war that's coming. And yes, he's leading us into war with Iran, if you didn't already. All right. Israel has a right to defend itself. No, they don't. According to Gaza's health ministry, again, 46,565 Palestinians have been killed and over 109,000 injured since the start of the Gaza genocide on October 8th, 2023. I don't believe that Israel actually responded the evening of the 7th. I could be wrong, but I don't think they did. Gaza's government media office puts the death toll at over 61,000, including the thousands of Palestinians missing and believed to be buried under rubble. Real death toll, including those who've starved to death and succumbed to diseases, of course, far higher. And that's World Socialist website reporting on Israel's war crimes this week. But we got more, folks.
Up in the sky! Look! It's a plane! It's a plane! It's Superman!
Independent journalist Sanaa Saeed, I like her a lot. She was with Al Jazeera for a while. Earlier today, Israeli forces, and this was March 7th. So this was literally Friday night. She posted this. Earlier today, Israeli forces raided and set fire to a mosque in Nablus. Again, they raided and set fire to a mosque in Nablus, the occupied West Bank. How many headlines did you see about this? Attacks on Muslim... None. Attacks on Muslim places of worship in particular have been a mainstay of Israeli violence well before October 2023. The reason we keep hearing nonstop about anti-Semitism is not just to justify the extermination of Arabs and Muslims, but also so we don't start dissecting the actual racism, which is a structure, not a slur or a feeling, at the heart of the U.S.-backed Israeli occupation of Palestinians. And here are some of the photos of the burned down mosque.
Jesus, what is that, Chernobyl? Holy shit.
No, they raided it, and then they literally set fire to the place inside.
I know. Tell me that doesn't look exactly like abandoned shit in Chernobyl. That's fucking awful.
Yeah.
That was a mosque. Look, there's stained glass back there. I'm sure that was gorgeous.
Yep.
You know? Like, they take care of their shit. Ugh.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, how many headlines?
Fucking assholes.
Tagging all the Indonesian outlets. So they also burned and destroyed a mosque. And then finally, more in the war crimes.
Mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
The fourth Israeli war crime I'm reporting on this week was another article from Sharon Zhang over at Truth Out. She seems to be really good at reporting on these. The headline, I couldn't even believe. I'm like, I have to bring this. I don't want to, but I have to, because people aren't talking about this nearly enough. Israel detains 14-year-old Palestinian boy from West Bank without charges. And we've talked about the number of children being detained without charges, and already that Israel has detained a record number. But these are children. These are children, folks. Children. The Children's Rights Group. Children. Sorry, children.
The children are future.
Where's that sorry, children? Because literally we need to be apologizing to them.
children.
Thank you. The Children's Rights Group has said that this is the youngest person Israel has held without charges on record. So they're breaking new records and breaking new ground, as always. Good job, Israel.
And those are amazing looking brand new American rifles and brand new, extremely expensive binoc phosphorus night vision goggles.
And what about the tank behind it?
That too. That's also pretty expensive. But that's probably Israeli made. That's Merkava, I'm betting.
Yep.
Maybe that doesn't look like a tank. It looks like APD, but APC,
They're Aton. It's an Aton. They guard Aton armored vehicles during a military occupation in Nablus. They need to guard their machines.
ABC.
While they're destroying the houses, okay? The
That's
Israeli
just they get
army...
little red triangles show up above them.
Remember, we're under ceasefire here on March 4th. The Israeli army killed 2 Palestinians in the eastern neighborhood of Jenin using armored vehicles and drones in the operation. They also burned 2 houses and destroyed another during the military operation. Okay.
Yeah.
Ceasefire. Quote. Now, this is Sharon Jang again, Indie Media Award honoree over at Truth Out, also Indie Media Award honoree. Although Truth Out has been really shit-livy. Truth Out and Common Dreams have been super disappointing. I mean, just nonstop TDS. Calling that out, man, it's terrible. Like, be more objective, okay? A lot of you were not nearly as hard on the Biden administration about this stuff, and I'll be the first to say that. You know, and I put these outlets as Indie Media Award honorees because I do think they still put out a lot of good stuff, but man, it's getting hard to defend the amount of simping that they still do for Democrats. They're still just hoping that the Democrats will finally turn it around and represent us. But we know that's never going to happen. Not until we get the money out. And I don't know if that's ever going to happen. So again, Israeli forces abducted a 14-year-old boy from the occupied West Bank last month and are imprisoning him without charges, making him the youngest Palestinian child on record to be placed under Israeli administrative detention order, a rights group says. DCIP, and they literally have to have an organization called the Defense for Children International of Palestine, just for the Palestinian children, because there are so many, reports that Israeli forces seized Muin Ghassan Fahid Salhat from his home in the West Bank town of Beit Fajar in the middle of the night on February 19th. The 9th grade boy has been issued a 4-month order for administrative detention, a practice in which Israeli forces hold Palestinians without charges or trial based on secret evidence not provided to the detainee or their lawyer, if they even have one.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Israeli soldiers forcibly entered the boy's home at 3:40 in the morning and detained his father, blindfolding him, tying his hands behind his back. Soldiers similarly detained Muin when the young boy awoke and went to look for his father. The soldiers ransacked their belongings, the report says, and confiscated their phones and computer because they're thieves and scumbags. Soldiers then took the boy away and ordered his father not to move for 10 minutes, according to DCIP. That's what terrorists and hostages do. Don't move for 10 minutes or we'll murder your kid. The family was not given a warrant for the raid. No, they just walked in and took him at 3:40 in the fucking morning while everyone was sleeping. Quote, administrative detention violates fundamental due process rights, yet Israeli forces are now expanding this draconian policy to detain Palestinian children indefinitely without charge or trial, said Aid Abu Ekitash, Accountability Program Director for DCIP. Muin's case sets a dangerous precedent showing that no Palestinian child, regardless of age, is safe from arbitrary imprisonment under Israel's military rule. And Netanyahu just got a boner. Sorry, everyone.
Sorry, children.
Muin is one of 112 Palestinian children held in administrative detention by Israel, according to the information provided by the Israeli Prison Service. This is not fake news. This is not Palestinian propaganda. This is not Pallywood. This is the Israeli Prison Service. They're proud of imprisoning 112 children.
This is the same prison service where people protested for their right to rape
Male prisoners. That's right. Their rights to rape male prisoners with metal rods.
I wish I was kidding.
Yes.
At this point, Israel's continued existence is a mockery of morality.
Your continued existence is a mockery of morality.
This is the highest number of children held in administrative detention on record since DCIP began monitoring the practice in 2008, the group has reported. 17 years. So tell me that they haven't escalated at all. Okay, and again, they're still using October 7th and the hostages, of which we know Hannibal Directive. We know that the families of the hostages are ready to sue the Israeli government because they've tried not to get them back, and they've used this as justification for all of this crap and bombing every day people that aren't firing back at them. Like, have we heard of any rockets being sent from Gaza or anywhere toward Israel in weeks? In when? But yet the bombs continue to fall. And now they've violated the ceasefire again, but not from Gaza. It's coming from Israel again. I think I read somewhere 192 violations or something like that, or 92 violations of the ceasefire already documented. They don't give a shit. Nothing's going to happen to them. The figure has rapidly increased as Israel's genocide in Gaza has continued. As of April of last year, for instance, Israel was holding 61 Palestinian in administrative detention, DCIP recorded, which then was also a record high at the time. Now it's double that. The group says that Israel's continued use of administrative detention against Palestinians is, of course, a violation of human rights. Yay. It's a strongly worded letter.
Is that amnesty?
No,
amnesty,
it's DCIP. All right.
Okay.
Israel's routine use
sounds like an amnesty statement.
Nope.
You know?
Israel's routine use of administrative detention against Palestinians, including children, constitutes arbitrary detention and violates international human rights law, of which they're apparently not subject to, but okay. Additionally, the Fourth Geneva Convention strictly prohibits an occupying power from forcibly transferring or unlawfully imprisoning protected persons, making once again Israel's practice a clear breach of its legal obligations, the group said. War crimes is the easier way to say that. Israel's practices regarding Palestinian prisoners have only gotten more strict amid Israel's genocide in Gaza, with Israel making it even harder for detainees to access legal representation. Many children in administrative detention go weeks without being granted access to a lawyer, DCIP said. Completely part of the plan. What are you going to do about it? The group added that Israel is unique in its harsh prosecution of Palestinian children. No surprise there. Quote, Israel has the dubious distinction of being the only country in the world that systematically prosecutes between 500 and 700 children in military courts each year, while systematically stripping away the fundamental right to a fair trial right. That's what they do. And again, they're, like I said, truth out is shit libby for sure, and we're resisting Trump's authoritarian pressure. By writing about it, I guess that's what they do. By screaming with their hair on fire and fear-mongering and hoping the Democrats are going to be the solution ain't the answer. And, of course, they're on Blue Sky, too, or Blue Cry. So, So, fuck Israel. Like I said, this was the conclusion of the fuck Israel portion of the program. If you are able and of means, please support the networks and support the independent media that you want to see. The best ways to do that are via Cash App, $ Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, and paypal.me/Indie News Network. You can sign up for newsletters and alerts at innnewsletter.com, and that's totally free. You can also support with an annual or monthly contribution there, too. Support independent media because we need it more than ever, fam.
Bye, have a great time.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen? To 50,000 died, and now we know our mission. We form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen. What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause, now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.
Who are these people?
I'm going to go to Dave DeCamp, and this is our Fuck Israel portion. Welcome to Fuck Israel. There's a lot going on here this week, unfortunately, as there is every week. Let's get into war crimes, shall we? Israel cuts electricity to Gaza, ramping up collective punishment. And this wasn't 6 months ago. This wasn't a year ago. This wasn't 18 months ago. This was March 9th, 2025, last Sunday. I wish I were kidding. Israel on Sunday said it was cutting off electricity to the Gaza Strip as it ramps up the collective punishment of the civilian population to pressure Hamas to release Israeli hostages, violating the ceasefire deal reached in January. Because Trump said they could, and Miriam Adelson gave him the money to say that they could. Unbelievable. Israeli Energy Minister Eli Cohen made the announcement saying he instructed the Israel Electric Corporation to immediately stop selling electricity to power stations in Gaza. I didn't even know that any were still standing. Quote, we will employ all the tools available to us so that all the hostages will return, and we will ensure that Hamas won't be in Gaza on the day after, Cohen said. The move is expected to impact Gaza's water supply since electricity also powers desalination plants that produce drinking water. So not only are they cutting off the lights, they're going to cut off the water. Since March 2nd, Israel has blocked the entry of aid, medicine, fuel, and all other goods into Gaza, also a war crime backed by the U.S. The UN's World Food Program has warned that it's running out of food supplies in Gaza, and Palestinians report a sharp rise in prices since Israel imposed total siege. Again, not a surprise. You can tell that these are very armed and dangerous individuals right here. Tongue in cheek. Israel is demanding that Hamas release more Israeli hostages, but without a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza or commitment to a permanent ceasefire, which were both conditions of the second phase of the initial deal. Of course, they want to impose their half, but not honor what they were committed to do. Hamas continues to call for the implementation of the second phase, saying it will not release the remaining hostages without an Israeli commitment to end the genocidal war permanently. Why won't Israel commit to doing that? Is it because they want to steal the land and murder everybody there? Huh. The Wall Street Journal reported Friday that Israel is planning a series of escalatory steps that could lead to the full-scale resumption of its genocidal war. Well, that also included Trump shipping 2,000-pound bombs there. The report said that after cutting all aid to Gaza, the next step was cutting off electricity and water, which they've done. After that, if Hamas doesn't agree to Israel's terms, airstrikes could resume, followed by mass displacement of Palestinians in Gaza and another Israeli invasion, because where are they going to go? The Journal report said that an Israeli invasion of the territories it withdrew from in Gaza seems inevitable, because that was their plan all along. However, some U.S. officials, including Adam Boehler, who's President Trump's special envoy for hostage affairs, who had direct talks with Hamas, has said they believe a deal can be reached. He's lying, but he can say so. Quote, I think you could see something like a long-term truce where we forgive prisoners, where Hamas lays down their arms, where they agree that they're not part of the political party going forward, which they've also not agreed to any of that. I think that's a reality. It's real close, he told CNN on Sunday. Literally, like, CNN? You're going to believe fucking CNN? In the meantime, Israeli bombs and gunfire continue to kill Palestinians in Gaza. Last Sunday, a week ago, the Palestinian news agency Wafa reported that at least one Palestinian was killed by Israeli gunfire east of Gaza City. Since the truce went into effect on January 19th, Israeli forces have killed more than 100 Palestinians in Gaza. I'm going to, again, repeat that sentence because it feels like an oxymoron. Since the truce of a ceasefire went into effect on January 19th, Israeli forces have not honored that ceasefire and killed more than 100 Palestinians in Gaza. And how many Israelis have Palestinians killed in retaliation of that? I believe the answer is 0. War crime number 2. Here we go. Fuck Israel. Let's go to Brett Wilkins. So that was Dave DeCamp, antiwar.com, Indie Media Award honorees. Now, Brett Wilkins, Common Dreams, Indie Media Award honorees. Israeli cabinet minister says the quiet part out loud. Quote, the only solution for the Gaza Strip is to empty it of Gazans, which would then be the Trump Strip then, wouldn't it? I'm not even going to use the line that she used. I'll say it later. Israeli Environmental Protection Minister Idit Silman argued Tuesday for ethnically cleansing the Gaza Strip of its Palestinian population so that the Jewish people can, quote-unquote, inherit the land, meaning steal the land. Many of them believe their deity promised them in biblical times.
Who are these people?
Thank you, whoever that is. Quote, the only solution for the Gaza Strip is to empty it of Gazans, Tillman, a member of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's ruling Likud translation party said during an interview with Reshet Bet Radio, according to a translation by Haaretz. Thank you, Steve Gill. Quote, and I can't believe, God has sent the U.S. administration, and it's clearly telling us it's time to inherit the land, unquote. No, that's absolutely not the fucking case. That's not how it works. Last month, Republican U.S. President Donald Trump proposed that the U.S. take over Gaza, quote unquote, remove its approximately 2.1 million Palestinian inhabitants, which he admitted was down to 1.6 million, I believe, or 1.7, and transform the coastal enclave into the Riviera of the Middle East. Israeli Finance Minister scumbag Bezalel Smotrich said last Sunday that the so-called Trump plan is currently, quote-unquote, taking shape because it wasn't the Trump plan at all. It was already a plan that was in place long before that. We covered it on this show almost a year ago. Quote, it could be in single-family homes or in Trump-style towers, just to kiss his ass, but we will definitely go back there. Silman said during Tuesday's interview that, quote, Gush Katif will return. There's no question about it, unquote, referring to a former block of 17 Israeli apartheid settlements in southern Gaza that were abandoned 20 years ago. It could be in single-family homes or Trump-style towers, but we will definitely go back there. I see no other solution to terrorism. You are the terrorist, lady. The answer to terrorism is sovereignty. Yes, sovereignty for the Palestinian people, for a single state, not run by the Knesset. While proponents of the plan insist that Palestinians will leave Gaza voluntarily, because they won't, critics counter that this notion is utterly divorced from reality, as most Gazans are descendants of people who fled or were ethnically cleansed from other parts of Palestine during the establishment of the modern state of Israel in 1948, and are loath to be subjected to yet another expulsion. Many elderly Gazans are survivors of what Palestinians call the Nakba, or the catastrophe of 1948, and watch a lot of Reef and Collins coverage about the history of Palestine and how this was Lord Balfour and Jacob Rothschild and the Zionist Conference of 1898, and this went way back before World War II. This was a plan. This isn't the first time that Silman has called for the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. She made similar comments during a recent rally, and last September, she also said that Israel is, quote, on a path to inherit the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. No, steal, not inherit, steal. Murder everyone and steal. Say it. Israel has illegally occupied the territory since 1967, and hundreds of thousands of Jewish settlers have steadily usurped Palestinians by building and expanding apartheid colonies on their land. Thank you for saying that, Brett. That's courageous. Quote, we will not conquer, she asserted last year. Conquer is a progressive word that the progressives brought upon us. We inherit. No, you murder. You steal. Inheritance from the Lord. Garbage. You're fucking human garbage. Stillman rose to prominence after abandoning the previous Israeli coalition government, prompting a crisis leading to the 2022 election that gave rise to the current far-right administration. So she's as big a piece of garbage in this country as there is. And yet she continues to fail upward. She'll probably be prime minister someday. Numerous Israeli politicians, military leaders, journalists, entertainers, and others have called for genocide in Gaza or the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from the territory. They've made TikTok videos. They're very proud of it. And they've been charged at the ICJ with terrorism for that and with genocide. Statements from Netanyahu, members of his cabinet, Knesset lawmakers, and others have been entered as evidence in the South Africa-led genocide case in The Hague. More than 170,000 Palestinians are dead, maimed, or missing at minimum, and millions or more are forcibly displaced, starved, or sickened following 15 months of Israeli bombardment and invasion and more than 17 months of complete siege of Gaza, according to local and international agencies. Palestine defenders argue that mass slaughter and annihilation of Gaza meet the definition of genocide under Article 2 of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. However, according to the UN Office on the Genocide Prevention and the Responsibility to Protect, quote, to constitute genocide, there must be a proven intent on the part of the perpetrators to physically destroy a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, unquote. I don't think there's a doubt there has. The intent is the most difficult element to determine. The agency stressed garbage. But critics say that comments like Silman's could make the ICJ's final decision much easier. Yeah, bolstered by the hubris of settler colonial power and the knowledge that it's killed, maimed, destroyed, expelled, humiliated, imprisoned, and dispossessed with more than 7 decades of impunity, and by the continued material and moral support of the United States, Israelis are explicit and unashamed about their genocidal intent because they've imagined and prosecuted a war against people who they see as colonized savages, as Israeli Holocaust scholar and British law professor Petty Green wrote last year. So that's a good article by Brett. That's war crime number 2. War crime number 3 is that in the UN, and I'm not going to read this one, there's a very long article by The Dissident. There's a UN report that proves that Israel is guilty of widespread sexual violence. Yay! Not that we didn't already know that, but not just against Palestinians, but also against Israeli female soldiers. Yeah, it's all in here. The mass rape hoax debunked. It's all in here. Pregnant women targeted. Raping pregnant Palestinian women, violence against Palestinian women encouraged. Yep. Attacks on reproductive health care facilities, all in here and documented. Attacks on women's centers, on the IDF housing pedophiles, abusing children, sexual torture in Israeli prisons. Again, we know a lot about all of this, all right? One Israeli soldier has said, how do you want us to rape you one by one or all together? The victim was also denied access to her lawyer once she had informed him of the rape threat. What a surprise. Nice guys there. Read the Dissident's article. Support the Dissident, the 307.substack.com. The dissident is actually a co-founder of INN. I also wanted to call attention to our friend Abu Bakr Abed, who is still in Gaza. He's in Deir al-Balah right now. Okay, he said breaking Israeli vessels are relentlessly shelling Deir al-Balah and central Gaza seashores. The sounds are truly horrific for us. It's nearly midnight. And then he says it hasn't stopped for 20 minutes, nonstop, intense, and terrifying. Awful. Terrorism. Literal terrorism. I'm done. I'm done with Israel's war crimes. Sorry. Okay, fuck Israel portion's over. Like I said, fuck Israel. They suck. We definitely get demonetized off of YouTube for that. So if you are of means and able to support, as Colin says, take care of your family, take care of your friends, take care of yourselves. But if you're able and you find a couple of bucks between the couch, between the cushions of the couch, or wherever you can find a couple of bucks, Cash App, $, Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network. And then you can also subscribe for free over at IndieNewsNow.com and get daily updates about what's happening at the network. All the live streams, all the articles, all of the clip premieres that are happening throughout that day are published at 5:45 p.m. Eastern, usually, on average. We'll almost certainly be censored for that as well. So if you are able to and a means, take care of your family, take care of yourselves, take care of your friends, but take care of INN and fund the independent media you want to see. Cash App, $, Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network. And you can also do it at INNnewsletter.com monthly or annually, but please do it at one of the other three places instead. Support independent media because we need it more than ever.
Can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen. What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.
Who are these people?
For those who don't know and have not been here since the beginning, Reef's internet crashed and his cable modem is shot. So I'm flying solo tonight. He is alive. He is okay. He is not in an undisclosed location, and thankfully he has not been disappeared because we don't know what's happening in these trying times right now. It's very scary. Now I mentioned narratives surrounding the good professor. Around Mahmoud Khalil, and I wanted to mention that even Senator Chris Murphy, who I have zero love for, sorry to show you my DMs, who I have zero love for, somehow figured out how to get this one right. So Middle East Eye posts that in a 3-minute video posted to X, Twitter, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut makes the case for why all Americans should be concerned about the arrest of Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil. All right, this is a 3-minute video, and I actually think it is important, and I'm going to show you why I think he's wrong and what he's missing in the end, but I'm sure you'll figure it out.
A young man by the name of Mahmoud Khalil, an immigrant and a legal permanent resident of the United States, is being held right now in prison, even though no criminal charges have been filed against him. And I want to tell you why that should matter to every single American. Khalil is a recent graduate of Columbia University. He opposed Israel's military operation in Gaza. He has deep animus toward Israel's policies and the U.S. support for those policies. He helped organize the protests over Gaza at his university last year. You can disagree with his views or his politics, but there is no evidence he has broken any law. But last weekend, Trump officials entered his apartment and took him into custody. They brought him to a detention facility in New Jersey at first, but when his family went to visit him, he wasn't there. For a while, his family and his lawyer had no idea where he was. They eventually found out that he was being held in a detention facility in Louisiana, and that's where he still is today. In dictatorships, they call this practice being disappeared. No charges, no claims of criminal behavior. The White House doesn't claim he did anything criminal. He's in jail because of his political speech. And here's why everybody should care. In America, your political speech is protected, whether or not the president likes what you say. But today, if you're loyal to Donald Trump, your speech is going to be protected, even if it's hate speech. You can be Marco Ellis, an employee of Doge, who said he, quote, was racist before it was cool, and, quote, normalize Indian hate. And the vice president of the United States will tweet in your defense. But if you are disloyal to Trump, or you're organizing against Trump's political agenda, your speech could be criminalized. You could find yourself in jail. Now, Trump chose to begin by disappearing a Palestinian immigrant, hoping that his place of birth and his immigrant status would just cause people to look the other way. But we cannot. Because once it becomes normal for the regime to disappear people simply for protest against the regime's policies, once a citizen or a resident of America can be locked away with no charges against them simply because they protested, there is no going back for America. Even if you're a hardened Trump supporter, this practice should cross the line for you. Even if you disagree with Khalil's views, this practice should cross the line for you. This has nothing to do with supporting Trump. This is about supporting an American value, maybe the most important American value, protecting free speech, even if it's speech you disagree with. If our new reality is that a president can disappear an opposition protester with no charges filed against them, we are not America any longer. Today it's Mahmoud Khalil. Tomorrow it's me or you.
Sadly, he ain't wrong. Now, like I said, he's almost there. It's not criticism of Trump that got Mahmoud disappeared, asshole. And this is why I'm mad, and this is why I brought this. Okay, why be disingenuous like that? We know why, because of his funders. It was his criticism of Israel. Trump is doing this on behalf of Israel, Chris, Senator. Plenty of people have criticized him before for years. This is because of Beitar US and Israel. Murphy won't say it because he knows what'll happen if he does. He'll be primaried. The Democratic Party will spend ungodly amounts of money to defeat him, and Israel will spend whatever it takes to defeat him in his next primary and make sure that he is no longer the senator from Connecticut. That is how powerful that these organizations are. That is how powerful the Zionist lobby is in the United States. And I hate to say it, and I hate saying it, but we are an occupied government. When 3/4 of our government has to check with their AIPAC handler before they can vote on a bill, that is occupied. So not only are they occupying Gaza and the West Bank, they are occupying the United States Congress and the the White House as well. And the Doge Department, of course, because they occupy this platform that I'm showing you right here. Now, I'm going to rely on another couple of Indie Media Award honorees, so we're going to double it up here. Mint Press News, you know them, top outlet. Okay. Robert Inlakesh, 2024 honoree for one of the top journalists. And thank you, in the words of the immortal Misty Winston, as Sean says.
We're fucked.
Okay. So the case against Mahmoud Khalil, how the Israel lobby fueled a campus crackdown, by Robert Inlakesh. Like I said, the detention of Mahmoud Khalil, a prominent Palestinian activist involved in organizing at Columbia University, is the result of more than a year of pro-Israeli think tank propaganda and lobbying efforts to tie students to Hamas and erode free speech protections in the United States. Since the first anti-war encampment at Columbia University last April, and let's not forget that that's where it started, a network of pro-Israel organizations, including lobby groups, think tanks, and private security firms, has worked to dismantle the student protest movement. Their influence has been evident in the rapid and coordinated response to suppress demonstrations. And also, let's not forget that Israel committed to spend $150 million in PR to stop this. Despite Secretary of State Little Marco Rubio's public claim that Khalil is a Hamas supporter, quote unquote, no evidence has been provided to substantiate that allegation. In fact, a White House official admitted in an interview with the Free Press, fuck Barry Weiss too, that the allegation here is not that Khalil was breaking the law. The Trump administration has offered no evidence of illegal or violent activity to justify its efforts to deport Khalil, a green card holder, or at least now a revoked green card holder. Instead, his removal appears rooted in political disagreement. Washington has made clear that any speech critical of Israel can be labeled as pro-Hamas and anti-Semitic without the need to substantiate such claims, which again is fucking insane. This absence of evidence has been a defining characteristic of the broader campaign, driven by the Israel lobby to curtail the First Amendment rights on college campuses. While Jewish student groups were among those leading last year's anti-war encampments, the Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP, chapters became a particular focus of political scrutiny. What a shock. A central figure in this push has been the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, a neocon think tank frequently cited as a source for alleged links between Hamas and SJP. The FDD's argument hinges on the claim that the American Muslims for Palestine, or AMP, a major supporter of SJP chapters, has ties to individuals formerly associated with charities shuttered for allegedly financing terrorism. In one such case, the Holy Land Foundation resulted in convictions that have since been widely criticized as politically motivated. Go figure. This is what they've been doing. The FDD first presented its claims publicly in 2016, but they failed to gain traction mainly due to a lack of substantive proof. Again, no surprise. Among his chief concerns was that AMP does not have to file an IRS 990 form that would make its finances more transparent. That critique is striking given that the Quincy Institute recently revealed that the FDD itself operates with, quote, dark money funding and holds a 0 transparency rating. Pot calling kettle black, baby? Yeah. You know, it's okay for them to not have transparency, but AMP certainly needs to have transparency. Well, because they're pro-Muslim, of course. In May of 2024, the Washington-backed Atlantic Council, and we know how neocon they are, suggested in an article that Iran was involved in the student protest movement. Insane. Corporate media quickly picked up on that claim and attempted to build a case around it, because of course they did. Narratives, folks. Yet despite the steady stream of coverage, easy for me to say, none of the reports were able to muster any real evidence to back up their accusation. Alex Karp, we know him very well, CEO of Palantir Technologies and partner of Peter Thiel, a company with deep ties to the CIA, has taken up a public crusade to reshape discourse on college campuses. His rationale for urgency is blunt. Quote, if we lose the intellectual debate, you will not be able to deploy any army in the West ever. Quote unquote. But they are losing the intellectual debate because you can't just strong arm and stonewall and silence everybody that criticizes you. Guess what ends up happening? You lose the argument, asshole. Safra Katz, the Israeli-American CEO of Oracle and one of the highest earning women in global business, has also weighed in on the protests. What a shock that she would be a Zionist. She reports to Larry Ellison. When asked about the wave of student demonstrations, she framed the issue in starkly militaristic terms. Quote, the reason, in my personal opinion, why they're out there is because they think Israel is weak. While they're murdering, okay, let me finish her quote. They think the Jews are weak, so they stand up strong. If Israel regains its deterrence capability and America regains their deterrence capability and is strong, they will disperse like they always do. We've seen this pattern here in Israel. When the terrorists feel strong, they're out in the streets. And when Israel comes in hard, they're hiding under the floor, unquote. Wow, that is as disgusting a quote as I've ever seen. Sentence by sentence, okay? They think Israel is weak. While they think Israel is murdering children, unarmed, defenseless children, and destroying city blocks and stealing the land. That's what I think. That's what they think they're doing. They think the Jews are weak. This has nothing to do with Jews. This is to do with Zionism. There are Jewish Zionists and there are Christian Zionists. Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, Christian Zionists, not Jewish. All right. This is America's not strong. America's shipping bombs to fucking Israel. How many 2,000-pound bombs do we need to send them to show our quote-unquote strength? How many bombs do we need to send to Ukraine to show our quote-unquote fucking strength? Tanks, drones, ammunition, you name it. And now soldiers too. What a disgusting piece of shit. Not only did Katz compare student actions in the United States framed as part of a resurgence of anti-Semitism, again, Palestinians are Semites, to terrorists, but the Israeli-American businesswoman has also contributed to both Donald Trump and Marco Rubio's political bids in the past. Of course she has. As CEO of Oracle, which owns OpenAI, Katz doubled her company's investment in Israel following October 7, 2023, because she's a piece of shit. The Anti-Defamation League, which, of course, has repeatedly accused U.S. student movement of anti-Semitism and supporting Hamas, while also being openly a hate group themselves, has openly called for the deportation of Mahmoud Khalil, because, of course, they have. Jonathan Greenblatt is a disgusting individual, president of the ADL. Pro-Israel groups insist that Khalil has ties to Hamas, yet even the Canary Mission, a site notorious for doxing pro-Palestine university students, could not produce evidence beyond his participation in a protest chant. Because now speech is considered to be violence? I guess if you're AOC. Are you saying that you're AOC Republicans? Huh. Interesting. Okay, chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, is apparently now against the law, even though they never really passed a law against it. The site argues that the phrase is pro-Hamas solely because Hamas leader Khalid Mashal has used it in the past. Well, by that, by that logic, anyone that has used any KKK phrase is apparently a KKK member or pro-KKK, right? One of the loudest voices behind the crackdown on campus protests is Trump's UN ambassador, Elise Stefanik. We know all about how and why and who's openly boasted about her role in forcing the resignations of 5 university presidents. Even Columbia University's decision to give in to pressure from pro-Israel lobbying groups didn't shield it from White House retaliation because it was the original place of the protests. So they had it wasn't about that. The administration still moved to strip $400 million in federal funding from the university, sending a clear warning to other institutions, as well as to the administration of that institution, that they better get in line if they ever want it back, which they may or may not get. This multi-pronged assault on free speech, built on baseless accusations of Hamas and anti-Semitism, is now being used to justify the deportation of a permanent U.S. resident whose wife and future child are American citizens. Again, they are American citizens. The campaign, it's part of a broader effort to erode the First Amendment protections under the guise of national security. There's only one issue, and that's that the First Amendment may not apply to green card holders. We got to check here. I got a whole thing about this in a minute, in a few minutes. All right. So again, Robert N. Lakesh, go check him out. Indie Media Award honoree 2024. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. Who else is telling you stories like this? Now, I wish it were all sunshine and daisies for Professor Mahmoud Khalil. However, I can't do that. I think some of you know Laith Marouf, who is with Free Palestine TV. Now, this is also a lesson in you cannot work with Zionists, even if you try, even if you're trying to do the right thing. And here's the funny thing. The case of Mahmoud Khalil is a perfect example of the limits of liberalism and collaboration with the Zionist empire in hopes of gaining some equity or change in the power structures. For those who don't know, Khalil is a Syrian citizen who collaborated with the imperialist plot against his homeland and worked for the UK embassy in London coordinating destabilization programs. That's like white helmet shit. He also worked in the NGOs in the USA designed to drive the Syrian diaspora youth astray from decolonization and into the arms of Wahhabi and Ikhwani collaborationist rule. So that's not great, okay? As for his role at Columbia University, he was a go-between agreed upon by the Zionist administration and the Palestine liberation supporters, i.e., he wasn't a member of the movement and only a messenger. He was also against the Hens Hall movement and actions. So, here's Mahmoud Khalil, a man who sold his country to the wolves for a few measly dollars, who acted as a reasonable messenger of Zionist power to the Palestinians at Columbia, and all he got in return was a crappy t-shirt and to be disappeared by Zionist master in the White House. He didn't even get a crappy t-shirt, really. Moral of the story here, as an Arab or Muslim, no matter how much you suck up to the Zionists, they will never treat you as an equal human. And the more you suck up to them, the more they will humiliate you when you outlive your usefulness. We hope Mr. Khalil returns home safely to his family, but you should all know what you are supporting, and to do so in spite of his shortcomings, because his disappearing, even though he is a tool, fool, or even agent, signals that all Arabs and Muslims in the USA could be treated even worse. And there are some receipts. And I hated bringing that part, but I would be disingenuous if I didn't, because that is part of the story. And it's helping people form certain angles and narratives about him. And you cannot, lionize him necessarily. All right. You have to speak the truth and say the whole thing and all of it. Now, we're going to have a little bit of levity. They had a hearing in New York City. Susan Sarandon, the millionaireess op herself, decided to show up and show solidarity, which is just wonderful. And there's so many people that love and adore and admire Susan Sarandon, the wonderful, beautiful 70-plus-year-old millionaire Susan, who doesn't have to be out there, but she takes up causes of lefty persuasion and amplifies and advocates for them, and we appreciate it. She gets her little moment in the sunlight for sure, and her credit. But let's just not ignore our friend Jesse Jett, who also wrote a song about this almost 3 years ago, actually, called How Could You, Susan? So we're going to play that right now on the show.
I remember while the golden age, 2015, and feeling like the world would be okay, until Susan came along, and just to suit her selfish needs, she went and tanked the Hillary campaign. So you can go thank Susan for those nightmare years of Trump. You can thank her when he wins in 24. And if I had the chance, I'd ask why she won't cancel debt, or why she made inflation simply soar. I'd say, how could you, Susan, throw us to the wolves? Why'd you let those wildfires burn? Why'd you make Joe Biden take back every single promise he made back when he still had votes to earn? How could you condemn us to a ruling fascist hand? And how much did they pay you for your part in Putin's plan? How could you destroy us with such reckless, cold abandon, missurrendering?
How could you? Incredible. That's the one and only Jetsy Jet, folks. Catch him on American Tradition every other Tuesday night on INN and on Friday nights on The Clip Show. Amazingly, he wrote that, like I said, almost 3 years ago. He predicted Joe Biden losing and, of course, Donald Trump winning in 2024. Why? And then he's supposed to shake his head for 30 seconds and tisk on the album version, but it hasn't made it to an album yet. Maybe it will make it to clandestine radio. Like I said, I wanted to mention something about green cards here. And so I'm going to lean on another Indie Media Award honoree for that, and that is Consortium News, who I adore. So this was from somebody I'm not familiar with, Gabriel Chin from The Conversation. They reposted this. Okay, and they said that green card holders' rights. As a pro-Palestine protest leader, Mahmoud Khalil faces deportation. Okay, and here's this professor listing 3 major differences between the rights of citizens and lawful permanent residents. Okay, so again, I thought this was very important to bring because we want to look at the actual law and what's going to happen here and not be surprised. So, Gabriel Chin writes, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that the government will deport lawful permanent residents who support Hamas and came to the U.S. as students with an intent to rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student anti-Semitic activities, referring to the Palestinian rights protests at universities in 2024. Here's further Rubio quote, and if you end up having a green card, not citizenship, but a green card, as a result of that visa while you're here and those activities, we're going to kick you out. It's as simple as that. This is not about free speech. This is not about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin. This is about people who don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with, Rubio said on March 12th. That policy has now ensnared Mahmoud Khalil, a recent graduate of Columbia University and a leader in the Palestinian rights protest movement school. Khalil, a Palestinian who was born in Syria, faces deportation after he was arrested on March 8th in New York City. The Department of Homeland Security said that the Secretary of State had determined Khalil's presence or activities in the country posed, quote, serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States. I don't know how they intend on proving that. But I also want to note here that it is misrepresented that he is a leader in the Palestinian rights protest movement, because he is the negotiator. He is the go-between between the leadership and the school. And I want to make that distinction. Khalil entered the United States on a student visa in 2022. In 2024, he received a green card and became a lawful permanent resident, meaning he has the legal right to work and stay in the United States. There are an estimated 12.8 million lawful permanent residents in the country. Khalil's lawyers say that his arrest and pending deportation are, of course, unconstitutional. And this is from the protest on March 10th outside the courtroom. In many respects, the rights of lawful permanent residents and citizens are similar, yet citizens and lawful permanent residents do not enjoy equal status under the law. This is really important to understand. This is how they're going to come at him. The Supreme Court and other courts recognize that lawful permanent residents have First Amendment rights to free speech, yet the Supreme Court upheld deporting lawful permanent residents in the 1950s based on their political activity, in particular, membership in the Communist Party. So, while lawful permanent residents may not be criminally prosecuted for their political speech or activity, what they say or write may well affect their ability to remain in the U.S. if the government determines that they are a security risk. Remember the language Rubio used. I'm a scholar of immigration law. Here are the three major differences between the rights of citizens and lawful permanent residents. Number one, like he said, you have limited political rights. Lawful permanent residents are people born in other countries who can legally work and live in the U.S. for as long as they like. They may enlist in the U.S. Armed Forces, apply to become U.S. citizens, and are legally protected against discrimination by private employers. States also generally cannot discriminate against lawful permanent residents, though states may require certain groups of people, such as teachers or police, to have U.S. citizenship. Between 1820 and 1920, non-citizens routinely participated in different aspects of government, including voting, holding office, and jury service in many states and territories. That's amazing. Voting. Non-citizens voting. These days, states and the federal government generally allow only citizens to serve on juries, hold political positions, and vote. With a few exceptions, such as voting in some local elections, permanent residents are not able to do any of these things. They don't get a vote for president. The distinction between non-citizens and citizens extends to other areas of life, such as public benefits. The Supreme Court has frequently stated, in the exercise of its broad power over naturalization and immigration, Congress regularly makes rules that would be unacceptable if applied to citizens. In practice, this means that the federal government, and to a much lesser extent states, do not offer public benefits such as Medicaid and other kinds of government support to lawful permanent residents and other non-citizens on the same basis as citizens. Now, they may offer it, but on a different basis. For example, lawful permanent residents must generally wait 5 years before becoming eligible for certain programs intended to support low-income people, such as Supplemental Security Income, SSI, and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise known as SNAP. That's food stamps. Finally, this is the one that scares all of us. Unlike citizens, lawful permanent residents can lose their legal immigration status. Yes, Congress has enacted many grounds for deporting a non-citizen or stopping them from entering the country. Some courts have found that the U.S. government can deport a lawful permanent resident because of national security or terrorism concerns, even if the person has not committed a crime. That's where they're going to get them. The Trump administration argues that they can deport lawful permanent residents like Khalil under the 1952 Immigration and Nationality Act, which states that a lawful permanent resident can be deported if the Secretary of State has reasonable ground to believe that this person, quote, would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States. Which, again, I don't know how you prove. How do you prove that this guy, this one person, has that kind of influence anywhere, let alone at a university unarmed, where there has been zero violence by students? The Trump administration had initiated deportation proceedings against Khalil on this ground. U.S. law also provides that any non-citizen can be deported if the Secretary of State and the Attorney General jointly determine that the person is associated with terrorism, and we know how Pam Bondi gets in line, or poses a threat to the U.S. Again, I don't know if they even need to prove this, or they can just state that they feel that way, and that's enough. In addition, the law says that an immigrant can be deported if they, quote, endorse or espouse terrorist activity or persuades others to endorse or espouse terrorist activity or support a terrorist organization, hence the Hamas stuff. But meanwhile, their support for HTS the last few years, no question about how they've been supporting a terrorist organization, or even the Knesset, who's been bombing and murdering unarmed children for 75 years, really, but especially since October 8th, 2023. That's terrorism by its specific definition. No, that doesn't count. Still, lawful permanent residents are entitled to certain basic rights, such as retaining a lawyer to represent them in administrative hearings and court before they're deported. And they haven't even given them that. By contrast, the U.S. government cannot deport a U.S. citizen for any reason. Oh, but don't worry, the Trump administration is working on that one, I can guarantee. However, sometimes U.S. citizens are deported by mistake, quote unquote. And you can be sure that the people that they want to deport will be deported by mistake. Mistakes just amazingly happen. Indeed, the Supreme Court has found that while it is constitutional to execute a military member for desertion in wartime, it would be cruel and unusual punishment to deprive them of citizenship. Okay? So here are the legal grounds for deporting non-citizens. There have been few recent court cases testing the scope of deporting lawful permanent residents on national security grounds based on pure speech. In 1999, the Supreme Court ruled that if a person is deportable, they are deportable, even if there is some other reason that motivated the government's deportation proceedings, such as a suspicion that the non-citizen is involved with crime or terrorism. The Supreme Court also then held that the government could deport non-citizens for technical visa violations, even if the case was based on the government's belief that the non-citizens were associated with a terrorist group. This is not boding well for our friend over here. There's also some precedent arguing that deportation based on adverse foreign policy consequences is too broad and nonspecific to even be constitutional. Indeed, Marianne Trump Barry, the sister of the president, held this opinion when she was a federal judge in the mid-1990s. But Samuel Alito, then an appeals court judge, overturned Barry's ruling on procedural grounds in 1996. Interesting. Again, getting technical here and really legal mumbo-jumbo. For its part, the Supreme Court has occasionally held that very broad and indeterminate deportation grounds are void for vagueness, meaning so sweeping and imprecise that they are unconstitutional. But that's in the past, and that's not a Trump-appointed Supreme Court that is 6'3" Republican. Khalil's lawyers appeared with the U.S. government lawyers before a federal judge in New York on March 12th. Their goal, to get Khalil moved from internment in Louisiana back to internment in New York. That's the goal now. But that may just well be the beginning of a long haul for the Palestinian student. Courts have proved reluctant to second-guess security grounds rationales in immigration cases. For those reasons, cases like Khalil's may go on for years. While his baby is born, while his wife has to deal with raising an infant by herself, while the threat of deportation holds over their heads, while they have to shell out money for a lawyer that they probably don't have, man, it's a nightmare. Now, not only that, again, narratives are being formed all over the place, but I want to absolutely give credence and talk about the way that he was detained in the first place. Asal Rod, I have tremendous amount of respect for. She's phenomenal. Another journalist, Middle Eastern journalist. Seeing how Mahmoud Khalil was detained is unreal. A guy wearing an Avenger shirt from an unnamed agency says, "We have you." They refuse to give their names, and it seems he has no rights to be read while being arrested, all while his pregnant wife watches and records it horrified. And I'm not going to play the video. This is 2 minutes. Okay, we can play this one, I believe. Yeah, this is from Asal Rod and actually from his wife.
You're going to be under arrest. So turn around.
Okay, let's not. Okay, he's not resisting. He's giving me his phone, okay? He's not, I understand. He's not resisting. Like,
there's no need for this. Don't worry about it. You're going to have to come with us. Don't worry. I'm coming with you. Don't worry. No one's resisting. No one's getting worked up.
You guys really don't need to be doing all of that.
It's fine.
حبيبي كيف بدي اتصل فيك؟
Take Amy. Call Amy.
Okay. Hi, Amy. Yeah, they just like handcuffed him and took him. I don't know what to do.
8 months pregnant.
Okay. And what should I do? I don't know. Nor.
Let me ask. Literally disappeared. Is that a cop car?
Can we get a name, please? Can we get your name? I understand the lawyer is asking for your name.
Go over there. No, we don't give our name.
The lawyer's asking for your name. He's saying they don't give their names.
Oh yeah, that's right. He'll be taken to immigration custody at 26 Federal Plaza.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
He'll be taken to immigration custody at 26 Federal Plaza.
She said they're taking him to 26 Federal Plaza.
Did they never identify themselves even as ICE agents? Okay, he's got a badge on him.
Can you please specify what agency is taking him?
I would take a picture of that badge.
Excuse me. They're not talking to me. I don't know. I don't know. Excuse me. The lawyer would like to speak to somebody. Oh my God, they're literally running away from me.
Yes, they are. Yes, bad cookies. That is illegal. That is correct. That is illegal. But who's enforcing the laws? Who's in charge right now? Unfortunately. Whatever they say apparently is the law. Now, again, all the narratives and everything going on. Now, I don't know why it's saying I'm not following Mr. Nico House, because I certainly am. Maybe I got unfollowed. But Nico House over at Hotspot made a video that I want to play. The dean of the department at Columbia University, where Mahmoud Khalil got his degree, is run by an Israeli spy, allegedly, whose job it was to surveil Arab speakers on behalf of the IDF. Yes, Mahmoud's dean was tasked by Israel to spy on people who fit his exact description. Let's watch this.
A professor at the center of the Columbia deportation scandal is a former Israeli spy. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm laughing because there ain't no such thing as a former Israeli spy. Now, if you're like me, you were curious as to why Khalil was singled out of all the people who protested and organized last year at Columbia University. You see, Khalil was actually a graduate of the university's School of International and Public Affairs and was abducted by ICE. But what you might not know was that the dean of his program is Karen Yari Milo, a quote-unquote former Israeli intelligence officer. And her job as an intelligence analyst was to surveil the Arab population because of her ability to speak Arabic fluently. I mean, this intelligence analyst is still so well connected that she was able to conduct an invite-only closed event for former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, which led to a protest of hundreds of people coming out, and the Jews for Peace at Columbia publishing on Instagram that the event should have been public and that they condemned the political project of Naftali Bennett. I don't know, man. I'm just saying. An Arabic-speaking Syrian former graduate student had a dean whose job it was to surveil his people. And it wasn't everybody. who's been suspended. It isn't Jewish students who have been suspended or arrested or being threatened with deportation. It's specifically the Syrian Arab protester organizing to protest the genocide happening in Gaza. And his dean had a job of surveilling his people. I just find that a little bit suspicious, don't you think? Like I said, there's no such thing as former Israeli intelligence.
Shout out to Hotspot. Go give them a follow. What are they now? It used to be at Hotspot. I don't know where they are now, what they're at now. But at Real Nico House, give him a follow. Well, I'll put that up for you, Cookies. I'll put that up. Careful with that statement, Nico, because the same could be said about military intelligence, like you, former, because I believe that Nico has admitted it in the past that he also is former military intelligence, potentially. Certainly Tulsi has. I also want to go to Glenn Greenwald on this one, who I'm not a big fan of, honestly. He's okay, but he's also never met a billionaire whose money he wouldn't take. So I'm not a great fan of his. And he was through the door on Rumble. He did, again, it's conflicting when it comes to Glenn. But he had a good point here that drowning yourself in the legalities of the rights of green card holders is disingenuous. And even there, it's beyond obvious that Khalil's views on Gaza were the motivator. He's speaking to his right-wing audience here. The Trump world is filled with extreme Israel loyalists who explicitly vowed to use power this way. Now, he's not saying that he isn't. He's kind of neutral, it seems, because he knows that all the money behind him certainly is pro-Israel, and he does not want to fuck with his golden goose. But he will call it out for what it is. And I give him some credit for that. What's really going on here is desperation. The reason so many, and again, he loves to use the woke stuff, the anti-woke pundits began obsessing on American campuses is fear of the growing boycott movement, which took down South Africa's apartheid regime. Censorship is a reaction to fear that they're losing public opinion, which they are when you murder children who are unarmed and you drop bombs on them. It tends to hurt public opinion about you as a country and as a people. That's just me. Thanks, Glenn. Now, this is part of a long thread. The pro-Israel right is 100% embracing all of the core premises long used to justify liberal censorship. It's so transparent as to be self-evident. They're pretending it's only the Khalil case to excuse it as just against green card holders, but it's far more sweeping. None of this is new. Israel critics have long been a prime target of censorship. In 2014, a University of Illinois professor condemned Israeli mass bombing of Gaza and lost his job. The Jewish student group said they couldn't be safe with a professor who used hate speech. Sound familiar? He said, I could literally spend all day documenting such cases where Israel critics in the U.S., many Americans, lost their jobs for that. Since October 7th, it's far worse. Laws have been passed and executive orders issued to punish Israel criticism. It was a key factor in the TikTok ban. There's a lot of narratives, and people are trying to use this guy as a scapegoat. They're trying to make this guy into something that he may not be. They're trying to make him out to be a terrorist sympathizer, which he's not. They're trying to make him out. He is a university student, a grad student who graduated, I guess, but he's now a green card holder who had the legal right to go find work in this country and to protest on his university campus, where his wife was still attending. This man had absolute right to be doing what he was doing and to say what he was saying. And now the administration and MAGA, which has now been turned into MIGA, Make Israel Great Again, has now been manipulated to advocate against this man's free speech, which if the Biden administration had done the exact same thing, they would be screaming bloody murder from their roof, from every rooftop they could find, that this were wrong and be on Khalil's side. But, of course, Miriam Adelson said so. So Trump's in line and everybody else is in line too. All right. This is all illegal and it may get overturned in the courts, maybe in time, maybe, but all the judges are in Trump's pocket and it's not looking good. I'm saying, you know, it's sad. It's not looking good for any of us. And it scares the hell out of me as a dissident reporter and journalist, you know, to some degree. You know, we're all at risk at this point. We definitely get demonetized off of YouTube for that. So if you are of means and able to support, as Colin says, take care of your family, take care of your friends, take care of yourselves. But if you're able and you find a couple of bucks between the couch, between the cushions of the couch, or wherever you can find a couple of bucks, Cash App, $, Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network. And then you can also subscribe for free over at IndieNewsNow.com and get daily updates about what's happening at the network. All the live streams, all the articles, all of the clip premieres that are happening throughout that day are published at 5:45 p.m. Eastern, usually on average. We'll almost certainly be censored for that as well. So if you are able to and a means, take care of your family, take care of yourselves, take care of your friends, but take care of INN and fund the independent media you want to see. Cash App, $, Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, and you can also do it at INNnewsletter.com monthly or annually, but please do it at one of the other three places instead. Support independent media because we need it more than ever.
Can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, why play civil when all these dead won't make you listen?
What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.
Who are these people?
We're going to get a little darker. Oh, man, this is. Why do they do this to me every week? Israel. What are we doing, guys? Now, I will say that thank Israel for introducing us to this incredible, brave writer over the last couple of weeks, Mariam Alanis. She writes for Left Voice. She is a Columbia student. Last week, I read a letter that she wrote about her personal interactions and her hanging out with Mahmoud Khalil and what his abduction meant to her. It was really moving. She writes for Left Voice also. So this week, to recap, Israel, of course, has broken its ceasefire and has now started dropping bombs on families. And our news feeds, by the way, have started filling back up with dead kids and bleeding kids and crying parents holding maimed children, crying why. And this is on Trump. This is on Netanyahu. They are owning it. They're not ashamed of it.
Who are these people?
Thank you, Kate. I really appreciate that. And it's
Kate. Please don't let it go darker, she says.
Oh boy.
I wish I could like oblige.
I do, but no, this one's viewer discretion is advised, I would say here.
Advised. Yeah.
Because first of all, Israel has broken its ceasefire and unleashed a new wave of violence on Gaza. The first night, they launched new attacks, killing over 400 Palestinians, breaking the already fragile ceasefire. Their relentless massacre makes it clear that its goal is the continued destruction of Palestine, that it was never about the hostages, and there's even conversation about the hostages' families suing Israel about not working to get them home.
Correct.
Right?
Amongst other things.
So look at that.
Mm-hmm.
That's somebody's home. Somebody's living in there now. Because that's what's
and
left.
They probably booby-trapped that rubble on top of that. So
that's all that's left. And now they started dropping bombs on that. So Mariam writes that at least 400 Palestinians have been killed in Israel's latest assault on Gaza, with the death toll continuing to rise. And again, this was on Monday. This is the largest escalation since the ceasefire with Hamas was broken on January 19th. Okay. Israel has committed numerous violations since then, including hindering essential aid and obstructing medical evacuations. The Gaza government media office reported 265 such breaches as of February 12th, with 118 Palestinians killed during the period.
Israel fat Al-Arir tweet about ceasefire.
No, but it's that everyone, the Palestinians cease and Israel fires.
Correct.
Israeli
members.
Israeli for R.I.P. Rafat, man.
Yeah, dude.
You just got me. Israeli forces also unleashed a new wave of attacks on West Bank following the brokering of the ceasefire, with the ongoing military operation displacing over 40,000 Palestinians, as we reported last week, and killing hundreds over the last 2 months. About the current assault on Gaza, Israeli officials claim they're targeting Hamas operatives, a narrative parroted, of course, by mainstream media, but the reality is clear. This is a continuation of a genocidal policy that's already slaughtered almost 50,000 people, including children, journalists, families seeking refuge, and what little remains of Gaza's shattered landscape. The same state that bombed refugee camps and obliterated entire neighborhoods and targeted media offices now expects the world to believe its rhetoric of precision strikes. These renewed attacks real precise. Though they precisely are destroying everything in their path.
The Nazis changed, but they never went away.
These renewed attacks come amid the already dire humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The blockade, coupled with relentless airstrikes, has left the enclaves what formerly was 2.3 million, but even Trump admits is now 1.8 million residents in a state of perpetual fear and deprivation. The suspension of essential goods, including food, medicine, and fuel, has intensified the suffering of a population already on the brink. And all we have to do is look at the Substack chat for the dissident to look at all the begging posts from all the Palestinians and the GoFundMes. It's absolutely beyond heartbreaking to see all of these people begging, and no way, there's no way everyone can possibly help all these people.
No.
They also arrive in the context of U.S. airstrikes on Yemen and ongoing negotiations for what would have been the second phase of a ceasefire deal. But of course, we reported 6 weeks ago, there was never really a plan to execute the second part of that deal. It was all a ruse.
No.
The proposed
from the jump.
Yep.
We tried to tell people.
The proposed agreement would have seen Israel hypothetically committing to a permanent ceasefire in exchange for Hamas releasing the remaining living male hostages, both civilians and soldiers, in return for Palestinian prisoners, and they always omit that part. Far from taking steps toward peace, Israel has chosen more bloodshed, demonstrating once again that its goal is not security, but the continued destruction of Gaza, West Bank, and all of Palestine. Ceasefire talks were already on fragile ground. That's a nice way to say so. Before this latest round of bombings, the first phase was precarious at best, reflecting deep contradictions within Israel's political and military establishment. Netanyahu, despite wielding some of the most advanced weaponry in the world, failed to retrieve all hostages or completely eliminate Hamas as it would have liked to. And again, almost a year ago, I reported with you here on this show that Dave DeCamp from Anti-War had reported from the U.S. military that they're never getting rid of Hamas. Hamas is never going away, and what they've done here only solidifies a new generation of Hamas. As many as you kill, you've created another generation of Hamas worldwide on top of all of it, outside of Israel. So, even with Netanyahu's temporary political maneuvers, his inability to achieve decisive military success has complicated the second phase of the ceasefire, which involves negotiating who would govern Gaza in a situation where Hamas maintains its control. Again, there was never any intent for that. So that was a ruse. That was a, yeah, we'll get to that when we get to it. Just give us our first thing now. Right? There was never a plan for that. And again, a year ago, the Ynet article laid out the Gaza 2020-35 plan, not 2020, but 2035, which was that it would be a Dubai-like independent type of state that would be managed by a coalition of Israel and Saudi Arabia and a lot of the Abraham Accord nations, but primarily by Israel, and Israeli military would never leave. That was also part of it. All right. Meanwhile, back in the Hall of Injustice. Come on. I'm waiting.
You're waiting? Meanwhile, enter. No, without a space. And then.
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom.
Thank you. Donald Trump, who certainly is the second or third in charge at the Legion of Doom behind Netanyahu and Miriam Adelson and maybe Peter Thiel, has openly embraced Israel's project of ethnic cleansing, declaring his desire to turn Gaza into a Riviera. His words lay bare the true agenda of Zionist expansion, the erasure of Palestinian existence. The Trump administration's reactionary policies are not only politically aiding Israel's far-right coalition, but also attempting to crush the growing global movement for Palestinian liberation. From criminalizing protesters to the attempted deportation of her friend, Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil, Trump and his allies within the universities were doing everything they can to silence those who stand in solidarity with Palestine. And we're going to talk about that next again. History has shown that as long as there's oppression in Palestine, there will be resistance. Even la resistance.
Yep.
The world cannot remain silent as Israel escalates its campaign of terror. Yes, they are terrorists, nor can it accept Trump's campaign of repression. Yes, he is repressing and also terrorizing Venezuelans, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. The spirit of the youth and workers who rose up last year in defense of Palestine must be revived. Even such. I'm sorry to kind of make levity, but I have to laugh at something here.
Yeah, we need it.
Zionism and imperialism have an insatiable appetite for violence, which must be put in check by the historic movement for Palestinian liberation. And I remember, and I'll never forget, one of the things that they do is they want to smile whenever they're being arrested. All right? Mariam, like she says, is a socialist journalist, activist, and a PhD student living in New York City. She's an editor for the international section of Left Voice. Follow her on Twitter. She's a badass. I'm a fan. I love her writing. Love to have her on sometime, have a conversation with her. This is the third or fourth week in a row that we've covered some of her stuff from Columbia University. Big fan. I also wanted to go to an actual Palestinian because I think we did that last week as well. And I think that it's really important to bring Palestinian voices to the show as well. And yeah, it's going to be dark and depressing. I'm really sorry. But we need to hear this too. All right. This is literally somebody, Dalia Abu Ramadan. Okay. Again, the day after the ceasefire had ended and the day after Mariam had written her article, Israel's bombs rained down at 2 a.m., killing hundreds around me in Gaza. The ceasefire was still difficult, but we believed we would wake up alive. Now Israel has taken even that away from us. So again, while we sit in comfortable United States watching this on YouTube, there are people like that are literally dealing with this right now, and we have to think about, and I don't want to be ignorant of their perspectives and views. Okay, so again, this is an image from Getty Images. People search for survivors in the rubble of a building destroyed in an overnight Israeli military strike in Jabalia in the northern Gaza Strip last night. Last night. I was jolted awake at 2 a.m. this morning by the deafening sound of explosions and relentless bombardment here in the Rimal neighborhood in Gaza where I live. The noise was so overwhelming I couldn't tell where it was coming from. I was in a deep sleep, as I am every night, worn out by the constant anguish we live through. There's no life for us, only survival in the temporary silence of a ceasefire. During the ceasefire, we struggled still to eat, to keep breathing, to find shelter. At least we could rest for a moment, believing we might wake up alive and not to the sound of missiles and blasts. But then something changed. What had happened? During the 2 a.m. bombardment, the earth itself seemed to shake under the force of each blast. Fear gripped my heart, and my family and I scrambled to make sense of the chaos. What was happening? We were paralyzed by the shock, as if we were reliving the horror of war all over again. We couldn't believe it. Had the war truly returned? In disbelief, we reached out to friends and turned on the news, desperate for answers. The response was clear. Yes, the Israeli military's airstrikes had resumed, raining down across Gaza from north to south. Death has returned like a shadow that followed us. Today is not October 7th, but this is the same nightmare in a different moment, a different hour, a different year. New questions haunt us. Will this nightmare stretch beyond a year like the war did before this broken ceasefire? Or will we be consumed from the very beginning? Will this Ramadan mirror be the one we barely survived? Will it bring more sorrow, more despair as we find ourselves trapped in a cycle that refuses to end? In the midst of these terrifying moments, my mind drifts back to the previous Ramadan. How we lived each day as if it were our last, constantly bracing ourselves for the worst. Despite the temporary nature of the recent ceasefire and the grim conditions of destruction, blockade, and famine, this year I had a glimmer of hope. Now, with the brutal return of genocide, my feelings of despair have deepened. Even before last night's bombardment, again, this is parts of the Rimal neighborhood, were already reduced to rubble. The author took this photo the day before the latest bombings. Look, there was a whole structure actually intact. Wonder if it still is. I wonder, where will I escape this time? Who will I lose? Will I ever get to graduate with my bachelor's degree in English translation from the Islamic University of Gaza, which they destroyed? The war and siege have delayed my graduation, but I've never stopped learning or writing, even as everything has been postponed because of the war. Even as I write these words, the sound of explosions reverberates, amplifying my anxiety and fear. Wow, listen to that. I turned 22 during the war on February 9th last year and turned 23 last month during the ceasefire. Unfortunately, with every passing year, I feel like I'm living a tragedy. How many more years will we grow older while only surviving Israel's wars on us? With every year, that adds another number to my age. I remember the wars I've lived through, enduring both Ramadan and Eid under the shadow of destruction. Even as I write these words, like he says, the sound of explosions reverberate, amplifying my anxiety and fear. The war that I survived in 2014 lasted for 51 days. I was just 12 years old, but I was fully aware that we were living through genocide. The Israeli military completely destroyed the Shujayyid neighborhood of Gaza. In 2018 and 19, many other escalations occurred, and the security situation in Gaza was unstable, especially along the borders where many innocent people were killed, including protesters demanding an end to Israel's blockade and their right to return to their ancestral homes. Then in 2021, I was preparing for my university exams. As I was preparing for my university exams, the Israeli military rained destruction on Gaza for 11 days. It was in May. It was one of the hardest wars I've ever lived through. Israel deployed weapons it never used before. The war also marked the beginning of the use of fire belts, an Israeli tactic in which a warplane pummels a single location with many missiles. The war reached its peak during Eid al-Fitr, and it was a terrifying time, especially since I had become more aware of the horrors around me. I remember my friend Zainab al-Kulok, who lived on al-Wahed al-Wehda Street in Rimal neighborhood, lost her mother and her sisters and also her brother. Her story was heartbreaking. On that same street she lived, the Abu al-Auf family was struck by a fire belt, and some of its members were killed. And that war ended, but little did we know the worst was yet to come. In the October 7th war, the Israeli military's use of fire belts advanced to the point where an entire neighborhood could be wiped out. The war was not just confined to one area. It was a war across all of Gaza. In 2024, we also lived through Ramadan and Eid in the middle of war. I remember desperately needing to leave the house on the first day of Eid. As I walked down the street in my neighborhood, I saw a house completely demolished with a message written in black pen on its wall. I know you can hear me, wishing you all the best every year. I asked some neighbors who hadn't evacuated about it, and they told me that a young man had lost his entire family and they were still buried under the rubble. He wrote that message because he was completely alone. I had hoped that we'd make it through Ramadan in relative peace under the fragile ceasefire, but it's become painfully clear this nightmare from October 7th, which has never truly ended, has returned with its full force. The terror, the destruction, the uncertainty, it's back, relentless and unforgiving. The war has come back stronger than ever before. It's erupted again at 2 a.m., and by morning, the Israeli military had murdered more than 400 people in Gaza, including many children. In those terrible hours, lives were shattered, futures obliterated, and unimaginable horror unfolding once again. The numbers, the loss, it's more than any soul can endure. We haven't even begun to recover from all the wars that came before. Like many, Zainab have been left shattered and their lives forever altered. They can never get that back. And then there are all those families, at least 1,200 of them, as I talked about last week, who have been erased entirely, wiped off the map. Their names no longer etched even in history. Not a single soul remains. One of them, I believe, had over 50 members. Today, on March 18th, the Zain al-Din family was erased too, destroyed by the return of the genocide. as the nightmare continues to claim everything in its path. We held on to the hope that the ceasefire would last, desperate for a moment of peace, a chance to wake up to calm despite the internal struggles and the obstacles we face as a result of this war. But how much longer must we live through this endless cycle of violence? How many more years will we carry the weight of this war on our shoulders? Will Gaza ever know peace, or will refuge from endless war only echo in the stillness of death? And that's literally what a Palestinian is feeling right now and what they're going through and their perspective. And it's the fucking worst. And our government is doing that. We're doing that.
Are we the baddies?
We are. And Truth Out,
I hate these guys.
Truth Out is a good independent outlet. They have some TDS, but they're reporting these kinds of perspectives, and they need to be supported. Support independent media. They are an Indie Media Award honoree from class of 2022 for one of the best outlets out there. And again, just heartbreaking to hear the perspective of, and to literally hear the voices from the people that it's happening to in real time. And I think it's important to not, to not leave them out of the conversation, because a lot of channels won't really cover what Palestinians are saying. They'll just kind of cover what American podcasters and American commentators and maybe Netanyahu and maybe a couple of other people are saying about it, but they're not really giving that voice, and it's painful. It really is.
Shout out to the EI too, who does an incredible job.
Electronic Intifada, also Indie Media Award honorees, right. Absolutely. Nora Barrows Friedman and Ali Abu Nima and Asa Winstanley and John Elmer, the whole crew over there, man. They do amazing work.
And if you go look at their website, it's nothing but actual Palestinian journalists, practically. So,
yep.
We'll give that a shout.
I want to continue, and I brought this video, and this also was from
Romanian lady
Monday night.
Nicole Jeans.
What's her name? Yes,
Nicole Genese.
Nicole Genese.
Hi, Chef Hachi.
She says, happening right now, Israel is butchering children and innocents in Gaza again. Funded by USA, as served as democracy and making America great again with children's blood. This is madness and war crimes, pure terrorism. So let's hear 3 minutes and 8 seconds of what she has to say.
So imagine this, 2 in the morning, 18th of March of 2025. You're sleeping in a tent, probably hungry, sleeping on the ground and tired, maybe scared. After almost 2 years of killing and persecuting and genocide. And out of the sudden, you wake up to this hell. You see, maybe you're used to, from your privilege of seeing it on social media. And then you see this image. Can you imagine? Was a healthy kid like an hour back. Then you see this one. Yeah, they're dead. And you know something? While you're spilling your latte in shock, your money is funding this. Your cycle of politicians from USA and Europe, they are funding this. This just happened. They were alive an hour back. While your president is putting the cap of making America great again by bombing all the countries around. Why they're bombing Yemen, for example? Because they must allow Israel to do this. They are defending national security. They are a threat for you? 1 hour back they were alive. 1 hour back they didn't have the wounds. Is this the threat to your democracy, USA and Israel, your biggest ally? 1 hour back. 1 hour back. You see what you achieved with your democracy and with your homeland security, thousands and thousands and thousands of kilometers away. You see what you're funding, Do you see what the criminal state, fake state of Israel is doing to children? Just go on all the social media that are allowing such things, such images, X for example, and you will see plenty. And how about you, journalists? BBC, CNN. Be careful with that pin of free press. It might pinch your heart because it's just a fashion statement for you. Because this blood is on
The press
all
is
your
free.
hands. Where is the free press? Where is the freedom that you're bragging about? Maybe I'm not supposed to say it, but for all the leaders of the world, I would love to give you flowers right now, just to replace the oxygen that you're wasting. If you're not a coward like the majority of the world, just raise your voice, because those could be your children. Those could be your families, because by the rate of the violence that the world is going into right now, it's not gonna be too far to reach all of us. At least for that reason, do it if you don't have humanity.
Yeah. Well,
yep.
I got nothing that I can add there.
She's I know I've covered her sending clothes and aid directly into Gaza. So
she kind of nails it.
Good lady, that. Respect to the Romanian women out there. So
yep. Audio visual
they gotta
producer,
deal with men
actress.
like Andrew Tate.
Yep. She's great. Okay. Next. Another Indie Media Award honoree. And again, I don't want to read through the whole thing, but the headline is enough considering what we've just watched for the last half hour-ish. Israel's assault marks one of the deadliest days for children in Gaza's history. Again, look at that image. That was Tuesday. At least 174 children were killed in the ceasefire, making it one of the deadliest 24 hours for children in Gaza's history. Thanks, Israel. Another record claimed. 400 dead, 500 wounded, according to health officials. And of course, we know what's happened to the health system there. So it's probably way more than that. How many more are under buildings now that we still don't know about? All right. This guy, Rami Abdu, his sister's entire family, including her 3 children, were among killed. All right. It's just... All right, and we got story after story after story. But here's the one that I wanted to bring, and I got one other one after this, I think, maybe 2. Our friend the Dissident, all right, reports that an Israeli paper recently revealed that Netanyahu called for war crimes to be committed. Now, he's already been indicted by the ICJ for war crimes, which we know he will never actually be held to account. Unfortunately, he should be. He should sit and rot the rest of his life in The Hague. I don't even want to look at his bald head, let alone the rest of it.
That'd be way too good for him.
All right. But the Dissident writes that the Zionists have long defended Israel's war crimes against civilians in Gaza based on the absurd claims that they were all due to Hamas using civilians as human shields, let alone the videos that we've literally seen of Israelis using Palestinians strapped to the hood of a vehicle as a human shield.
Thank you. In Lukash, there's a whole article. Go read it.
Over at Mint Press. A look at the data shows that this is complete nonsense, and the data shows that 9 out of every 10 people killed in Gaza are civilians, and that 70% of the people killed in Israel in Gaza, by Israel in Gaza, are women and children. This, coupled with the endless genocidal statements made by Israeli officials, show that they are indeed deliberately targeting civilians. However, there has been a recent bombshell proving that Netanyahu indeed called to target civilians in Gaza. Buried in a lengthy piece written in Hebrew in the Israeli paper Ynet, we referenced Ynet and their Gaza 2035 plan, it was revealed that Netanyahu explicitly said he does not care about goals in Gaza and called to take down houses and bomb with everything there is. Here we go. It was reported that by the paper, quote, when Halevi, who was the General Chief of Staff of the IDF, presented the cabinet with the IDF's actions for the first 48 hours of the war, he noted that the Air Force had attacked 1,500 targets in Gaza. It's a huge number, which requires exceptional intelligence and operational capabilities. Netanyahu erupted in anger, shouting and banging on the table, "Why not 5,000? He slammed the chief of staff. "I don't care about goals. Take down houses, bomb with everything there is." Motherfucker. Monster.
Benjamin Netanyahu?
All right. This proves that Netanyahu explicitly did not have a military goal when launching the genocide in Gaza and actively called to bomb houses and indiscriminately bomb with everything there is in Gaza. This stunning proof of intent to commit war crimes and genocide will certainly bolster the ICC's war crimes court against Netanyahu and the ICJ's genocide case brought by South Africa. As if either one of them matters. They're never going to be held to account for those. There's been ample evidence of the Israeli security forces deliberately targeting civilians, on top of them admitting it. Feroz Sidwa, a volunteer doctor who has worked with a surgeon in Ukraine, Haiti, Burkina Faso, worked as a surgeon in Ukraine, Haiti, Burkina Faso, and Ghana, testified that while he was in Gaza, quote, nearly every day I was there, I saw a new young child who had been shot in the head or the chest, virtually all of whom went on to die. And that wasn't by Hamas, that was by the IDF. He noted that after he had asked other healthcare workers, he had found that, quote, dozens were seeing the same thing, including Dr. Mark Perlmutter, who is currently unaccounted for the last 5 days, and Instagram has now shut down his account for reporting from Gaza. Since then, there have been 44 international healthcare workers in Gaza who've testified that they witnessed, quote, cases of preteens shot either in the head or in the chest. The recent UN report on Israel's use of sexual violence in Gaza found numerous examples of civilians being explicitly targeted. I think I might have mentioned that last week, or it was really too graphic to bring to the show.
Yeah.
The report noted that only 2 of the 12 potentially functioning hospitals previously offering sexual and reproductive health care were actually able to even provide such services because of direct attacks against the main maternity wards in Gaza from the IDF, where there was no credible information indicating that the buildings were used for military purposes. But again, they don't care. Their whole plan is first to destroy the healthcare system. Then they destroy the streets and roads so that you can't get sick people to the healthcare system that exists. Then society starts breaking down. The report also documented a deliberate attack in mid-November 2023 on a women's rights center working with survivors of gender-based violence, where IDF soldiers wrote, quote, "You sons of bitches, we came here to fuck you, you and your mothers, you bitches." End quote. "The dirty pussies of your prostitutes, you ugly Arab, you ugly, you sons of bitches, we will burn you alive, you dogs," unquote. In graffiti again with no, quote, military justification for the ISF firing tank shells at this center.
Your continued existence is a mockery of morality.
Now, there is proof that Netanyahu went on record calling to indiscriminately kill civilians in Gaza without any care for a military goal, showing that the order to commit these crimes came right from the top. And I debate whether Netanyahu is actually even really the top, but that's okay. In order to take down houses and bomb everything there is without caring about goals is about as explicit of a call for war crimes and genocide as a statement we can get. Yes. And I think that Keir Starmer and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Donald Trump should also be equally implicated here, by the way. Because they're the ones that are arming, funding, and providing the spy flights overhead. Starmer is providing spy flights. Go check out Declassified UK to learn more about that. Since restarting the genocide in Gaza, Netanyahu has been killing more civilians than ever. The Israeli newspaper Haaretz called his recent assault on Gaza the largest child massacre in Israel's history, with 200 children and 100 women killed in one day and 400 civilians killed altogether.
Haaretz.
That's Haaretz, a conservative number given the fact that the number of dead is still not yet final. Now, Ynet has documented that Netanyahu is explicitly calling for these indiscriminate massacres in Gaza and has no actual military goal outside of the mass murder of civilians. His military goal is to steal the land and resources underneath it so that he can then build the Riviera and take the gas and the oil underneath it and build eventually the Ben Gurion Canal. That's the goal.
10-year-old kids sing.
That's the plan.
Fucking monsters.
And as Gladwin D'Souza points out, that it is happening with the murderous support and supply chain of the USA. Agreed, Gladwin. Okay.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Now, I wanted to bring this image, and then I want to read one more piece, and this was from Norman Solomon, who I'm not usually a big fan of, but he happened to knock it out this time. This is a Getty image, another one, but oh my God. What is this description? What are we looking at? Okay. There is no place left for people to flee and set up their tents. They have been forced. That's weird. Move over there. They have been forced to pitch tents in a landfill next to piles of garbage near Al Yarmouk Stadium in Gaza. That is awful.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
So, let's get to genocide denial. And let's talk about those who do deny genocide. And I like this piece because I've talked a little bit with you, Reef, and some others about J Street and why there isn't. There's a lot of focus on AIPAC, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of focus on J Street. And it's really strange. All right. So the genocide denial of the pro-Israel, pro-peace crowd, gaslighters. Norman Solomon again. The Israeli government has displayed clear and unequivocal genocidal intent. Continuing to arm them with U.S. weapons means full complicity in what they do with them. Totally agreed. So he writes, Israel's renewed assault on Gaza comes several months after both Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch issued reports concluding without equivocation that Israel was engaged in genocide, let alone the ICJ and the ICC. But very few members of Congress dare to acknowledge that reality, while their silence and denials scream out complicity. In a New York Times interview last weekend, the Senate's Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, put deep moral evasion on display. Among the slogans that are used when criticizing Israel, he said, "The one that bothers me the most is genocide. Genocide is described as a country or some group that tries to wipe out a whole race of people, a whole nationality of people. So if Israel were not provoked and just invaded Gaza and shot at random Palestinians, Gazans, that would be genocide. That's not what happened."
They actively have been doing that for years.
That's exactly what happened.
What are you talking about?
Because it didn't just start October 7th, Chucky Schmucky.
What an idiot. Oh.
Schumer is wrong.
Idiots.
The International Genocide Convention defines
People just say
genocide.
stupid shit.
Forget about the fact that his definition is off, and that's what he's going to correct here. Humor's wrong. The International Genocide Convention defines genocide as acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, such as actions killing, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, and, quote, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. Such actions by Israel have been accompanied by clear evidence of genocidal intent, underscored by hundreds of statements by Israeli leaders and policy shapers. Scarcely 3 months into the Israeli war on Gaza, scholars Raz Segal and Penny Green pointed out a database compiled by the Law for Palestine Human Rights Organization meticulously documents and collates 500 statements that embody the Israeli state's intention to commit genocide and incitement to genocide since October 7, 2023. Those statements, quote, by people with command authority, state leaders, war cabinet ministers, and senior army officers, and by other politicians, army officers, journalists, and other public figures, reveal the widespread commitment in Israel to the genocidal destruction of Gaza. Since March 2nd, the UN reports, Israeli authorities have halted the entry of all life-saving supplies, including food, medicine, fuel, and cooking gas, for 2.1 million people. Again, Trump said it was 1.8. So 2.3, 2.1, 1.8. Hundreds of thousands dead is what I'm seeing here by the numbers.
Wrong.
Now, Israel's horrendous crusade to destroy Palestinian people in Gaza, using starvation as a weapon of war and inflicting massive bombardment on civilians, has resumed after a 2-month ceasefire, which wasn't really a ceasefire at all. They just stopped bombing, but they never really stopped killing Palestinians or jailing Palestinians, rounding them up, and then not agreeing to the ceasefire agreements that it had agreed to. On Tuesday, children were among more than 400 people killed by Israeli airstrikes. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu proclaimed that this is only the beginning. Of course, we also know that if Netanyahu doesn't stop that if he stops it, he ends up going to trial and going to jail. It's almost impossible to find a Republican in Congress willing to criticize the pivotal U.S. backing for Israel's methodical killing of civilians. It's much easier to find GOP lawmakers who sound bloodthirsty. I will say that Marjorie Taylor Greene, among others, has been principled in not wanting to fund Israel. For a whole different reason, but I'll take it. A growing number of congressional Democrats, still way too few, have expressed opposition. In mid-November, 17 Senate Democrats and 2 independents voted against offensive arms sales to Israel. But in reality, precious few Democratic legislators really pushed to impede such weapons shipments until after last November's election. How convenient. Deference to President Biden was the norm as he actively enabled the genocide to continue. And I want to pause right there for a second because he notably said offensive arms sales to Israel, because that's a bullshit term that Bernie Sanders decided to create. Because there are no defensive weapons that are being sent to Israel. Give me a fucking break. They're all defensive. They're all offensive. Every single one of them. Iron Dome and all. It's all fucking offensive because it's all designed to annihilate the Palestinian people. Even if it's protecting Israelis, and the intent in the end is to annihilate the Palestinians. He says this week, the renewal of Israel's systematic massacres of Palestinian civilians has hardly sparked a congressional outcry. Silence or platitudes have been the usual. And here we go. For the pro-Israel, pro-peace J Street, and what a fucking contradiction that is, the largest and most influential liberal Zionist organization in the United States, evasions have remained along with expressions of anguish. On Tuesday, the group's founder and president, Jeremy Ben-Ami, issued a statement decrying the decision by Netanyahu to reignite this horrific war and calling for use of all possible leverage to pressure each side to restore the ceasefire, as if he's both sidesing the thing. But, as always, J Street did not call for the U.S. government to stop providing the weapons that make the horrific war possible. That's where the genocide denial comes in. For J Street, as for members of Congress who've kept voting to enable the carnage with the massive U.S. to Israel weapons pipeline, support for that pipeline requires pretending that genocide isn't really happening. While writing an article for The Nation, and the article is entitled, "Has J Street Gone Along with Genocide?" I combed through...
Yes, the answer is yes.
Yes. 132 news releases from J Street between early October 2023 and the
Took
start
you that long, huh?
And the start of the now broken ceasefire, right? In late January of this year. I found that on the subject of whether Israel was committing genocide, J Street aligned itself completely with the position of the U.S. and Israeli governments. Nah. Go figure. J Street still maintains this position that it took last May, when the International Court of Justice ordered Israel to halt its military offensive in Rafah. J Street continues to reject the allegation of genocide in this case, a news release said. It would be untenable to publicly acknowledge the reality of Israeli genocide while continuing to support shipping more weaponry for the genocide. That's why those who claim to be pro-peace, quote unquote, while supporting more weapons for war, must deny the reality of genocide in Gaza. Because otherwise, they would literally be guilty of war crimes under the ICJ. All right? And here is the TDS unconstitutional rampage begging for money. Right. All right? So this concludes, finally, our Fuck Israel portion of the program. And we're definitely not getting remonetized for stuff like that. So if you are able to, out of means, please, please, I hate begging and I hate doing this.
Money, please.
That one. We could use some help. Cash App, Ko-fi, PayPal, even Substack if you must. But please try to do one of the other three if you can. The reason being that they don't take very many fees. We end up with the most possible money. If you super chat on my channel, you are able to. YouTube takes 30%. If you Rumble rant, they take 50%. Now, you could Rumble subscribe to the channel, the little red button that says subscribe with the little red gift. They give us all of that. So that's cool. You can do that. But again, Cash App, ko-fi.com/IndieNewsNetwork, paypal.me/IndieNewsNetwork. And that worked. Use it this week. And thank you so much to Sean, and thank you so much to Kameshwari Kate, and thank you so much to Charlie Mack Friday Night, and to Colin Care Bear, and everybody else that contributes. It's incredible. Thank you. It really helps, and it really helps, keeps us going. If you're able to, Cash App, $ Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network. That's with an IE. Support independent media. We need it more than ever. I love you all, and I'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone.
All people are afraid. No one knows what they're doing. Everything is getting worse. Some people deserve to die. Your money is worthless. No one is properly dressed. At least one of your children will disappoint you. The system is rigged. Your house will never be completely clean. All teachers are incompetent. There are people who really dislike you. Nothing is as good as it seems. Things don't last. No one is paying attention. The country is dying. God doesn't care. Shh.
Good night, everyone.
Ciao, baby.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
You can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen. What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.
Who are these people?
This is about all of the Gestapo tactics that the Trump administration has been enacting to harass, intimidate, deport, and detain college students here that are protesting on behalf of Palestine and want the genocide to stop. I did not hear about this guy, Ali Reza Daroudi. I did hear about him the other day because Tommy Tuberville apparently weighed in, and he didn't realize that this was an Alabaman and that he didn't do anything wrong, and yet he's being sent away too. So early Tuesday morning, U.S. immigration police kidnapped a doctoral student studying at the University of Alabama from his home. As of this writing, 22-year-old Iranian citizen Ali Reza Daroudi is listed as detained on the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement website, but there's no record of where he's actually located. Disappearing people. The Alabama student newspaper, the Crimson White, first reported, that's kind of funny, the Alabama White, first reported that Daroudi was abducted from his home located just off the Tuscaloosa campus at around 5 a.m. Tuesday morning. That's what they do, early morning raids while you're still sleepy. The paper, citing a text message chain that included other Iranian students studying on the campus, reported that Daroudi first entered the U.S. in January 2023 on an F1 student visa. The message thread noted that Daroudi's visa was revoked 6 months later, prompting Daroudi to immediately contact the International Student and Scholar Services at the University of Alabama. That was 18 months ago. ISSS replied with confidence, stating that his case wasn't unusual or problematic and he could remain in the U.S. legally as long as he maintained his student status. So he stayed in school. After being reassured by university officials that the apparent revocation of his visa wouldn't be an issue, Daroudi continued his studies on campus. There's been no evidence provided by the DHS that Daroudi was a leader or even participated in anti-genocide protests on campus, and he hasn't been accused of a crime, just like Khalil. The only quote-unquote crime he's alleged to have committed is a minor traffic violation, according to the Crimson White, which reported that 18 months ago in November 2023, he was cited for speeding. He pled guilty and paid the $267 fine. Certainly not worthy of having cops show up at his door and disappear him. But he's Iranian. He's in Alabama. Go figure it out. Despite not being accused of a crime, his whereabouts were unknown for nearly 24 hours. On Thursday afternoon, the Crimson White and other news outlets confirmed that he's currently being incarcerated at the Pickens County Jail in Alabama. That jail is the common waypoint in the inhumane deportation journey, which typically leads to a detention facility in Louisiana, which is where they send Mohammed Khalil, before the prisoner is forced onto a plane to some overseas destination. Officials at DHS refused to comment on his case until Thursday evening, at which point they sent a message to news outlets stating, quote, ICE HSI made this arrest in accordance with the State Department's revocation of Darudi's student visa, unquote. That's it. Without providing any supporting evidence, DHS stated, quote, this individual posed significant national security concerns, unquote. This is really Kafkaesque. Darudi is one of hundreds, if not thousands. What? Go ahead.
Yeah, just the Kafka. Like, yeah, that's an understatement.
He's one of hundreds, if not thousands.
Kafka would think this shit's ridiculous.
Right? He wouldn't believe it.
You know?
One of thousands of immigrants who've been disappeared or abducted by U.S. immigration police in the first 3 months of the Trump administration. Hundreds, if not thousands, folks. The deliberate targeting of students, in many cases it appears with the help of universities themselves, is aimed at subordinating all cultural and intellectual life to Trump's fascist MAGA agenda. Again, this is World Socialist website. I'm not going to agree with all of it. It's the trots. They're extremists to the communist side. Legal resident and Columbia University graduate Mahmoud Khalil is currently facing deportation for speaking out against the genocide in Gaza. Again, not exactly. He did, but he's mostly there for being the negotiator. And again, we're going to talk about the negotiator for one of the other ones next. After being kidnapped on March 8th, he remains incarcerated in an ICE detention facility in Louisiana. It's been more than 3 weeks. They did move him back to New Jersey this week. But he's still in jail. He's still not going to get to see his kid born. And he may never get out of there. They may just send him home, wherever he is, to Syria. Would you want to be sent to Syria right now? I wouldn't. Cornell University PhD student Mamadou Tal, we talked about last week, is currently being hounded by the Trump admin for deportation for filing a lawsuit earlier this month challenging 2 executive orders issued by Trump aimed at suppressing speech critical of Israel and supportive of Palestinian equality. And then, of course, Thursday, protests were held for the second straight day in Somerville, Mass. in response of the kidnapping of Tufts University PhD student Rumesia Ozturk on Tuesday evening. She's committed no crime and apparently was targeted solely because she co-authored the op-ed in support of resolutions passed by the student body in opposition to Israel's genocide in Gaza and called for divestment by the university endowment. As of this writing, police in Somerville were currently blocking hundreds of protesters from entering City Hall, where the council was currently debating whether to include a ballot measure on the question of BDS on Israel on the November ballot. You can be sure how that's going to go. Video of the thuggish and masked agents surrounding and disappearing Ozturk into an unmarked vehicle Tuesday evening as she was walking to a friend's house for dinner has prompted mass outrage throughout the country and internationally. Questioned at a press conference Thursday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio gleefully took credit for her detention and possible deportation. Oh, we revoked her visa. It's an F-1 visa, I believe. We revoked it. Because you want to write op-eds, but because you want to participate in movements that are involved in doing things like vandalizing universities, harassing students, taking over buildings, creating a ruckus, we're not going to give you a visa. We gave you a visa to study and get a degree, not become a social activist, he added. I didn't realize that you were in control of what their activities were when they got here. I thought you gave them the opportunity to study and be a student and have the freedom that all Americans have. Again, without providing any evidence that she participated in any activities. At the same press conference, he, of course, admitted that he revoked hundreds of student visas. Maybe more. It might be more than 300 at this point. We do it every day. Every time I find one of these lunatics, I take away their visa. He's hoping that he can not have to take any more away because he's taking them all away. All right. I hope we run out because we've gotten
Well,
rid of all
wrapping
of
it up
them.
in just blatant xenophobia.
Yep.
Like, God forbid someone from another country other than the great red, white, and blue is going to be taking my biscuits.
But this
God
isn't
damn
even.
it.
Wait a minute. Stop. This isn't even protesting against America. I mean, it is protesting against American involvement, but it's protesting against Israel killing children and stealing their land.
Yes.
If they stop killing children and stealing their land, the kids would go home and the protests would stop, and they can't manage to make that happen. During the ceasefire, were the protests still happening?
No, and all the kids are asking
because the
is
ceasefire
for these
wasn't
universities
really a
to
ceasefire.
stop, divest, and sanction them. You know, God forbid.
Right. Stop spending the endowment on defense contractors and Israeli-supported companies. One of Rubio's so-called lunatics facing this deportation is an accomplished and hardworking scientist from Russia who fled to America after the invasion of Ukraine due to the fear that her outspoken opposition to the war would land her in the crosshairs of the Putin government. CIA asset, what? On Thursday, multiple outlets reported about Ksenia Petrova, a computer scientist who arrived in the U.S. via Georgia in the spring of 2023. According to her friend and coworker Cora Anderson, Petrova had been working at Harvard Medical School upon her arrival, because no CIA ever infiltrates Harvard Medical School. In a Facebook post, Anderson described her friend as not only kind, but, quote, incredibly intelligent and diligent, which CIA agents never are. Anderson said Petrova was...
It's a mystery! It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma!
Anderson said Petrova was returning from a trip from France on February 16th when she was detained at Logan International Airport in Boston. After not being able to locate her friend for nearly 72 hours, Anderson found that Petrova's visa had been revoked and she would be deported to Russia. After Petrova told ICE agents she feared persecution if she were to be returned to Russia, she was transferred to an ICE detention facility where she's remained imprisoned for over a month. So they're keeping people imprisoned indefinitely without any schedule or time frame as to when they might get out, without trial and without charge. How is this legal? How is this okay? The Insider, which is a Russia-based outlet, reported that Petrova is currently being held in an ICE facility shared with 80 other women. The outlet, citing a report from Russian news outlet Agentstovo, noted that Petrova's visa may have been revoked because of frog embryos that were in her possession, but not properly declared on customs forms, normally just a $500 fine. It's unclear if she'll be allowed to stay in the U.S., deported, or remain imprisoned in an ICE hellhole forever, indefinitely. Conditions inside the overwhelmingly for-profit facilities, by the way, Core Civic Group, are you hearing? Like the rest of the American prison gulag, are notoriously awful. And I remember Tara Reid had a conversation with someone that they deemed to be a Russian spy. What was her name? Maria something? Butina. She's now in the Russian Duma.
That is correct.
She's now in the Russian Duma. Yeah. In the last week, several videos have been posted to TikTok, which we showed last week about Chrome Detention Facility. Video shows humans packed into concrete cells without any space. At the El Paso Service Processing Center in Texas, at least 8 Venezuelan immigrants have alleged that guards of the facility beat them on February 25th. In a video recording featuring the victims, first reported by Rolling Stone and Capital in Maine, the detained men detailed the abuse they suffered. At the start of the video, a bruised Jesus Quintero explained, quote, "In this institution, as is evident by showing my face and in the majority of our bodies, today was another day of mistreatment by the officials of the center, of which we are tired and ask for help and justice," unquote. After Quintero spoke, another man in an orange jumpsuit stated that the guards had me up against the floor and assaulted me. Following, another man with 2 black eyes declared, "I was also assaulted today by officers." Here's the abduction, by the way.
Cruel
You
and
can see
unusual
her.
punishment.
You can see agents walk up to her, and this has sound. Plain clothes.
You guys covering your faces? You want to take those masks off?
6 of them. For an unarmed person in the middle of the
let
day.
them wear masks, but kids can't wear theirs. Fucking
Yeah, you don't look like it. Why are you hiding your faces? Why are you hiding your faces?
I mean, who knew brown shirts came in different colors now?
Yep.
You know?
Plainclothes, undercover ICE
Can I see
agents.
some faces here? How do I know this is the police? Seems like bullshit to me. Certainly looks like it.
Civilian vehicles. Is that a Range Rover or an Expedition? I think they're all Expeditions.
Yeah.
I wonder whether the plates are U.S. government or just standard Massachusetts plates.
Bit of a
That one
kidnapping
too?
going on here?
No, that's a move along.
I can't even imagine what they told this person who stopped to look. Oh, we're just abducting a terrorist, no problem. And she's gone. And has not been seen since.
Wasn't there someone in the chat will remind me, there was like a woman who was kidnapped very similarly recently by like someone that they bought a like badge off Temu, you know?
Okay.
And this lady ended up dying.
Here's another 2 minutes and 18 seconds. The editorial board chair, David North from the World Socialist website, interviews Mamadou Tal. I also brought, unfortunately, so I'm not going to show this. I'll link to it in the chat after. I also brought this Counterpunch article, which is a letter from one of the Columbia PhD candidates, but he fled. He left. He saw the writing on the wall and was like, I'm not getting arrested. I'm not getting sent to an ICE prison. I'm not getting deported. I'm bailing and I'm going to Canada. Maybe they'll get him up there, maybe, but he wrote a whole explanation of why he went to Canada. Okay, we must exert maximum pressure on Columbia and other universities to protect international students from these arbitrary state actions, and we must fight for complete amnesty and reinstatement for those whom Columbia has sacrificed in the hope of reversing funding cuts. I don't blame him, dude. I'd have gotten the fuck out of there, too.
Well, you know who I blame?
Yep. Well, no, he went there. Don't blame them, because... No, they took him in. No, blame Trump. Blame Trump. Blame Israel.
No, he's blaming Canada. That would be a good remix. Someone make that one.
Seriously, and it fits, too. That slaps. All right?
Yep.
And you could totally, do stuff with the tunnels and with supremacy and with... Yes. And we are also demonetized this channel if you're able to. And it means, please don't give to the platforms. Do it via Cash App, ko-fi.com/IndieNewsNetwork or paypal.me/IndieNewsNetwork as a friend and family. And that gives us no fees. We like having no fees because that puts the most money in our pocket. Otherwise, we're paying the banks and we're paying the multi-billionaires and we're paying the hedge funds and they're taking their cut. We don't need them to do that. They can get their cut from somebody else. Thank you so much. Support independent media, kids.
Yes, sir.
We need it more than ever. We love you, fam.
Bye, Felicia.
Mwah. Ciao, baby.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
You can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen? 50,000 died. And now we know our mission. We form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen.
What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.
Who are these people?
God. We're up to the portion of the program I did not
Yes,
really
I'm
want to do. It's Eid. What Eid is the end of Ramadan, I believe. It's a big celebration. It has children in their Sunday bests. It's, you know, they've been fasting throughout the daylight for, is it 28 days?
Yeah.
And now it's over. The ceasefire's over and the bombs have been dropping. And on Eid, Abu Bakr Abed says, on Eid day, we're being slaughtered while Muslims prepare the nicest sweets and clothes. I'm absolutely enraged. And the Israeli military says a ground offensive has begun in Al Janina, a neighborhood in southern Gaza's Rafah. And I'm going to bring some other horrifying stuff, and I'm really sorry to have to do this, but they're doing this, so I have to. This is a Palestinian kid. Okay, I'm gonna pause this for a second. This is a Palestinian kid. Screams for the world to feel his pain after he and his family were injured in an Israeli airstrike on the first day of Eid. Eid Mubarak, everyone.
خليه يصور خليه تعال صور احكي هاي نفس العيد هاي نفس العيد هاي نفس العيد هاي نفس العيد تصور تعال احكي طلع هاي العيد الله ستر لك الله ستر لك تعال احكي
So that's how I woke up. I think it was yesterday morning. It might even been this morning. Wait, when was this posted? March 30th. This morning. I woke up this morning to seeing these type of videos.
I have a question.
Yes.
What do you say when fuck Israel isn't enough? More importantly, what do you do? Because this shit gotta stop.
Well, first you don't stop reporting on it because they're trying to murder everyone who is. And then you have to try to stop the people that are doing it by stopping the weapons manufacturers, by stopping the ships at the ports, by hurting the pockets and doing BDS and hurting the people that are funding this and arming this. I'm going to show some other horrific images here. Sarah Wilkinson. The Israelis targeted and killed a group of children while they were playing in a camp west of Khan Yunis after they put on their new Eid clothes. And I don't want to show up too close-ups because I don't want to have this stream pulled for graphic violence or promoting violence, because we're not promoting violence. We're showing what Israel did. Sarah also shared that as Muslims around the world prepare to celebrate Eid, Israeli troops topple the last standing minaret to symbolize the destruction of Islam in Gaza. Isn't that nice? Who are the terrorists again? This place is leveled and destroyed. Remind me again who the terrorists are.
Are we the baddies?
He was martyred alongside his mother this morning, wearing Eid clothes. He was alive this morning, looking forward to the joy of Eid, but the occupation stole those moments of happiness from him and the rest of his life. This is a friend of the network. How fucking depraved do you have to be to bomb starving people living in tents? It defies human understanding. I was shaking with rage this morning about this shit. But it wasn't just this morning. Indie Media Award honoree and friend of the show, Ricky Hale, Council of State Media, posted one of the worst headlines I have to read all year. The IDF has just decapitated another Palestinian child. The 40 beheaded babies mob have fallen strangely silent. I've just witnessed the harrowing footage of a distraught father kneeling over the remains of his son who was decapitated in an Israeli strike. He's literally holding the kid's head.
Holding the head.
The
talking
father
to the child still.
Stroked his son's cheek.
Yeah, I saw this.
I'm not gonna be able to make it through. These sons of bitches. I mean, they blurred it out. I have the original without it blurred, but I'm not going to show it.
Yeah, I saw it.
It's... No. As Mahmoud, the father, was speaking, a voice can be heard from the distraught onlookers saying, half of the rest were injured, and yet Zionists will justify all this bloodshed by telling you Palestinians love only death and then lie about the victims. So what lie are we going with here? Are we going to pretend this boy was Hamas? Fake a membership card like we did with Hossam. By the way, watch Reef and Collins' coverage about the...
Yeah.
Fucking kids.
The 3 dead journalists and the kids, 18-year-olds.
You're going to say he was standing over a tunnel holding a rock? What would justify killing your child, please? Let me know when you thought of something, because I'm sure they'll think of something. I've not heard Zionists' excuse for this murder yet. They don't even need him anymore, but sickeningly, they have been mocking the father and child on social media. We're talking about the sickest of the fucking sick here. When we were falsely told Hamas had decapitated 40 babies that had apparently justified genocide. Now, for the people on the podcast, I just scrolled past 2 tweets from monsters the other day. One of them saying to, quote unquote, just tell them Hamas won. That'll cheer them up, unquote. And the other one...
Nazis.
And the other one saying, how did they miss the father? Israel needs to step up its game. Wow. Watching a father hold his son's decapitated head in his hands after Israel murdered him, and this is what they say. Bot or not, with a blue check or not, those people, they're irredeemable.
I mean, we talked about 3 young men who were definitely men at that point because they grow up far too young in Palestine. Like, Beitar comes in, tells us there's no journalists there. Only Hamas. Fuck you. This is the kind of shit they fucking try to pull.
These motherfuckers.
So...
The world will not act. It will not even impose sanctions on the genocidal regime. It is Palestinians who must face sanctions, who must go without food, water, and electricity. You might be punished for speaking up for Palestinians, but you won't be punished for gloating about Israel's beheading children. The police won't even look into that. Just know this isn't the first time that Israel has decapitated a child. It's not even close. It's actually a regular occurrence.
Not even the second.
And it hasn't once received condemnation from any Western media or politicians. These child decapitating strikes are being carried out with the help of course, the Royal Air Force and the U.S. military, who are conducting surveillance flights and picking Israel's targets. If you're British, your tax money paid for this child's murder, instead of feeding our disabled citizens. Does that make you feel ashamed? Because it should.
It should. Absolutely, it should.
Whatever military objective you're trying to achieve must immediately stop if it involves decapitating children. The moment you decide children's lives are a worthwhile price to pay, you become a monster, and we all understand this. And you can't say, well, they're raised to hate Israelis. Why might they be doing that? Why might they be? Could it be because they're raised in a prison
I think Israel's
with
doing
no
a good job on their own on that,
with no right of travel or passports or clean water or 24 hours of electricity a day or? Make no mistake, if Hamas had just decapitated a child.
But we gave them greenhouses that one time, Indy.
Oh, and they destroyed them and filled them with concrete. Because they thought they were poisoned. Make no mistake, if Hamas had just decapitated a child, anyone applauding it would be banned from social media and arrested for supporting terrorism. They would be expelled from university, and if they were foreign, they'd be deported. But when Israel decapitates children, you're portrayed as the good guy for supporting it. The people who disagree with you are punished. And Ricky is frightened right now for his safety in the UK, and I'm frightened for Ricky's safety in the UK. So support Council of State Media. Support Council of State Media. We need them more than ever. I love Ricky, and I really appreciate him and his journalism. But it doesn't end there, folks. I wish it did, but Kyle Anzalone, I only went to Indie Media Award honorees here. Again, Abu Bakr, who works with EI. And we're going to have some Sanaa Saeed coming up in a little bit, too. But here's Kyle. Here's a report from the WAPO. Israel is planning a more aggressive invasion of Gaza. Now, this was a week ago, so this was likely
Who are these people?
Thank you. The planned Gaza.
Hey, appreciate it.
The planned Gaza invasion. Thank you, Sean. I caught you that time.
Yeah.
Thank you. According to WAPO, Kyle writes, the Israeli military is gearing up for a major ground operation in Gaza that could last months or longer because they haven't killed everybody yet. Last week, Israel broke a ceasefire and hostage deal with Hamas and conducted large-scale bombings in the Strip that killed hundreds. The Post spoke with current and former Israeli, and by the way, we covered that extensively on this show last week. Go watch it. The clips that are up on How Do We Miss That? And Indie Media Today everywhere and Rumble everywhere. The Post spoke with current and former Israeli officials who explained that, quote, the new and more aggressive tactics, unquote, would probably include, quote, direct military control of humanitarian aid like they haven't taken already or blocked, targeting more of Hamas's civilian leadership and evacuating women, children, and vetted non-combatants from neighborhoods in the West Bank where that's not Gaza, to humanitarian bubbles that they then drop bombs on after they make everybody sleep in tents. The official said those who are not evacuated would face a siege that is a, quote, more intense version of a tactic employed last year in northern Gaza, unquote. That's where they literally shot anything that moved. More intense than that. How are they going to more intense than shoot anything that moves? In 2024, the Israeli military carried out a version of the General's Plan, an outline for ethnic cleansing drawn up by retired IDF generals for northern Gaza. And they cut the...
we covered that. Go look at INN News.
Yep.
The secret plan, Israel's secret plan, something like that.
Yep. And it was on the New Year's Eve, the Christmas special that we did on the Palestine coverage. I included that for sure. The plan again called for the complete evacuation of all Palestinian civilians south of the Netzarim corridor, not just north, but now south of the Netzarim corridor, a strip of land controlled by the Israeli military. Under the plan, if civilians don't leave, they're to be treated as combatants and killed either by military action or starvation. Ain't that nice? Again, that's a war crime. Civilians, if they refuse to leave automatically, they're a terrorist, so therefore they must be killed. How is that not a war crime?
Yep.
It is. The Post then reported the more brutal strategy reflects a change in military leadership, and I think you guys covered this last week on INN News, that they just changed the names and the faces and then put the more monstrous policy in because you already knew who Ben Gvir and Smotrich were, and now you've got even more, was it Eichmann and Kaufman, or I don't even remember the guy's name. See, like I said, they just changed the names, and now you don't even remember who they are. The policy gets worse. The new policy is more in line with the view of Netanyahu. Herzi Halevi stepped down from the post. He was replaced by Eyal Zamir, who's even more fundamentalist and fanatic than Halevi was. Amir Avivi, a former deputy commander of the Gaza military division, explained to the Post that Trump's vigorous support for Tel Aviv gives Israeli military commanders more faith that they'll have the equipment needed in Gaza to level everything in sight and rebuild the Trump hotels for Jared. Quote, now that there's new IDF leadership, there's the backup from the U.S., and there's the fact that we have enough munitions and the fact that we finished our main missions in the north and can concentrate on Gaza, Avivi said. The plans are decisive. There will be a full-scale attack, and they will not stop until Hamas is eradicated completely. You mean the Palestinian people are eradicated completely. We'll see. As a reminder, since October 7th, Israel has decimated the Strip and killed at least 50,000 Gazans. Still, Israeli and U.S. officials have said that Hamas has returned to its pre-war strength. So all of this was to get nowhere. All of this murder, death, and destruction, to have them right back to the same number they were, that's awfully convenient because it gives them the excuse and the chance to continue to go in and bomb people. Huh.
But Indy, Trump brokered the most ceasefirest of ceasefires.
Yossi Cooperwasser.
Peacemaker.
All right. The Post noted that the IDF would not be less restrained in order to defeat Hamas. No, they would not. All right. Yossi Cooperwasser, who's a former senior IDF intelligence official. There are no former. And head of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security think tank, meaning that he's now just a spy here, explained, quote, there's less opposition now with Zamir and Katz. They're more ready. The government was committed to removing Hamas from power. The security establishment wasn't happy with this idea. They were trying to focus more on military assets and less on civilian assets. Because once you remove Hamas from Gaza, the IDF would have to rule Gaza. But there's nobody left. They're just going to rebuild. They're going to turn into a massive construction site. They're going to do what they did to Lahaina. Put a bunch of fences and a bunch of fun and cover it all up. And you're not going to see it until they take the wraps off of it. It's going to turn into a construction site. Hard hats and legal documentation only. While the Post report says the IDF plans to wage a counterinsurgency in Gaza, Katz said Tel Aviv will expel the Palestinians and annex the Strip. So again, what kind of messaging? How are they going to expel them? Where are they going to expel them to? There's nowhere to send them to. You're going to kill them all. Quote, I've instructed the IDF to seize additional areas in Gaza while evacuating the population, and in West Bank too, and to expand the security zones around Gaza for the protection of Israeli communities and IDF soldiers. What? Meaning that the security zones around Gaza into Gaza. On Saturday night, the Israel, because nobody's gotten outside of Gaza. That's ridiculous. For the protection of the communities. For what? Nobody. Hamas never broke the ceasefire, and they all admit that. Okay?
Yeah.
No Israelis have been killed since the start of the ceasefire, and Trump and the guy, they all agreed to that. Still, none. Since breaking the ceasefire and hostage deal, though, Israel has resumed large-scale bombing in Gaza, and additionally, Israeli troops have attacked Rafah in southern Gaza, the Netzarim corridor in central Gaza, and of course, displaced 40+ thousand people already in West Bank, including Jabalia. Fuck Israel again. This is the other story that I had to unfortunately report on with Israel this week. This is Sanaa Saeed, and others are going to talk about this. The Israelis surrounded, captured, and executed 15 Red Crescent civil defense workers. Those are ambulance drivers, and only one body had been retrieved at the time. There's no coexistence with an ideology and its adherents like this. They don't want to coexist. None that isn't a lie, at least.
No.
And yet, this is the scaffolding, the thing that is built and still props up Western civilization. This is the reason every institution in the U.S. and Western Europe willingly crumbles, folds itself inward in service of this genocide. The bones of Western civilization see its reflection in a pool of Palestinian blood. Look what. All right. This is from Al Jazeera and Hind Cowdery. Civil defense saying, again, the Israeli army buried the bodies of the martyrs at the site of the attack, making it difficult to locate them. The scenes at the scene were horrific and confirmed the deliberate targeting of ambulance and civil defense crews by the Israeli army. The Israeli army destroyed 5 Palestinian Red Crescent and civil defense vehicles and buried some of them after targeting them. What happened to the Palestinian Red Crescent and civil defense crews was a massacre that accounts to another war crime. And again, I've only been really talking about literally documented war crimes here. Again. Breaking execution of the 16 ambulance crew members by Israeli forces. Horrific massacre. Following coordination with the International Red Cross, civil defense teams entered the Tel al-Sultan area in Rafah, south of Gaza. It was confirmed that the IOF had executed all 16 members of the missing civil defense and Red Crescent teams who all disappeared 4 days ago. Let me guess, they are all Hamas. They were found buried near the barracks. Additionally, all Red Crescent ambulances and civil defense firefighting vehicles at the site were deliberately destroyed. Because they can't have any rescue equipment.
They found them deliberately burying, Palestinian bodies with bulldozers and
earlier today,
hiding their murdered.
I was trying to capture the latest. Red Crescent Society confirmed 11 more bodies found in Rafah, 6 identified as its members and 4 with the civil defense. The 11th body was still being identified. Any news on the hostages? Ask Bibi, because he's scuttled the deal multiple times in order to save his ass. Fuck that. They don't want to save the hostages. Israel has tried deliberately multiple times to not get the hostages. And then we've got this Mondo Weiss article talking about, I can't. You guys talked about it Wednesday. Go read it. How Western media silence enables the killing of Palestinian journalists. 208. Yeah. And there they are. But I can't with that one. Here's another one. Abu Bakr Abed, who we started with. This is Dr. Sidwa. Now, finally, thankfully, Dr. Mark Perlmutter was heard from. He and Dr. Sidwa were in a building or in a hospital that was attacked and bombed by Israel. And they continued to work. Those guys are monsters. They're incredible. Like, in the best way. They're incredible.
Also,
go ahead.
In the words of Eva Bartlett, where is Dr. Hassam?
Oh, I forgot to, again, bring the tweet, but he got 6 more months in detention.
You got 6 more months of detention. For what? They don't say. Fucking.
Now, Dr. Feroz Sidwa, who we covered last summer, delivered the letter to the White House courageously, and he has been back and forth. And he, with Dr. Mark Perlmutter, were there. He sat down with Press TV. Mark Perlmutter is home. He actually sat down briefly with Jose Vega, I saw. But I wanted to take this minute 29 from a Press TV interview and play this.
The hospital cannot purchase new material. It can't receive new material. And it's not just humanitarian aid that's not being allowed in. Nothing is being allowed into Gaza. When a person is wounded in battle, and then they are being cared for by a medical professional, the doctor, but also the patient are protected. So it's a double crime. It just doesn't matter in the Western discourse, in the United States, in Europe. You're not allowed to just say the simple and obvious truth. The Israelis are deliberately destroying a healthcare system with the backing of the United States and Europe. You're not allowed to just say simple things that are obvious to anybody with half a brain can figure it out. You ask a 10-year-old kid to look at the evidence, they'll tell you exactly what's going on. The only way that this can come about is because Palestinians, Arabs in general, but especially Palestinians, are just not seen as human beings. But I also want people to understand that we are committing crimes in Gaza. Everybody, people use the word complicit. They say America is complicit in Israel's crimes, but this isn't correct. That implies that Israel is committing the crimes and we're just in the background or something. The U.S. and Israel are committing crimes in Gaza together.
Yep.
It's American airplanes, it's American helicopters, it's American bombs, even the tanks, these vaunted Merkava tanks. They're basically made in the United States. So I don't accept that my government has to be involved in committing crimes against people who have done us no wrong.
Man's a hero. Runs into battle zones to fix kids without anesthesia, without proper equipment, and to do all he can. Because they killed all the Palestinians.
That's some of the hardest stuff, by the way. The nurses coming back and talking about their stuff about, like, try giving a kid a fucking amputate a child with no anesthesia.
They killed all the doctors there. So, or kidnapped them and are torturing them like Hossam Abu Safia. So it requires international doctors to go in there because they're running out. And of course, with all the bombs that are being dropped and all the injuries that are being inflicted by Israel, you need doctors to take care of the injured. They don't really want you to have that, so they're destroying the ambulances, and they're destroying the healthcare workers, and they destroy the roads, so the ambulances, even if they did exist, couldn't get there. I mean, all of these are war crimes, and nobody does anything about it. And really, it's going to be up to China.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's going to be up to China. They are the other major world power that could stand up and say, enough. We're done. They're done with this. We're not going to allow it anymore. We're not going to permit it. And we will start arming and funding the Palestinians.
Africa, hopefully, parts of it.
Yeah, but Africa...
South America.
Africa needs a trading partner. They need someone. Yep. China Belt and Road isn't established and they're enough yet. Unfortunately. Yep. And again, I hate doing that this every time.
Russia should fucking be doing shit already.
They're selling out. They're selling out to Israel. They've already started to. And what a surprise. Somebody sent, I think it was 7 Seas actually posted a thing about and showing Putin sitting across the table from the Lubavitch Chabad guys.
BB.
No, not even. Yeah. No, the Lubavitch Chabad representatives and rabbis. They're all part of they're all part of it. So, I'm sorry, everyone, but fuck Israel. This is awful. Fuck Israel. And they can't be allowed to continue to do this.
Yeah.
And we are also demonetized this channel if you're able to. And of means, please don't give to the platforms. Do it via Cash App, ko-fi.com/IndieNewsNetwork or paypal.me/IndieNewsNetwork as a friend and family. And that gives us no fees. We like having no fees because that puts the most money in our pocket. Otherwise, we're paying the banks and we're paying the multi-billionaires and we're paying the hedge funds and they're taking their cut. We don't need them to do that. They can get their cut from somebody else. Thank you so much. Support independent media, kids.
Yes,
We need it
sir.
more than ever. We love you, fam.
Bye, Felicia. Mwah. Ciao, baby.
No! We just fucking lost the stream.
You can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen.
What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.